I'm not going to need this gavel. You guys are quiet. Welcome, everybody. Charles, we ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. So welcome, everybody, to the meeting of the Temple Terrace City Council. It's nice to see a room full of people. I know we have reduced seating capacity. This is the first time we've actually filled up our reduced capacity, so it's really nice to see real live residents out there. So thank you for coming, and we value your input. We look forward to hearing it. So if you would please stand as Councilmember Schisler leads us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings that you bestow upon us each and every day, for our health and our happiness, for our families and our friends. And we ask for your continued blessing on our first responders, for their skill and bravery in the face of dangers each and every day to keep us all safe. We pray for their families, whom they leave behind each day to serve and to protect us. We pray for the medical personnel everywhere who brave the COVID-19 crisis each and every day. We pray for our students and our teachers as they venture back into the classrooms. Keep them all safe and help the children get back to their education after a 160-day vacation. We pray for our leaders to guide and heal our country in these turbulent times. We ask you to join us tonight as we conduct the business of our city, that we will work together to solve our problems and to help us continue to be an amazing city. We ask these things in your most holy name, O Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Schisler. So for the benefit of the public, and actually a little clarification for our procedures tonight, because it's a little different, obviously, with the COVID restrictions. We have always and continue to welcome and solicit public input on all items that we discuss. It's a little more difficult now because we have reduced seating. So what we've done, in addition to opening the doors to a limited number of people, is we've provided an opportunity for public comment through a couple of other ways as well. The first is email. Members of the public may email a statement to be read into the record during the public comment section on any item listed on the agenda. Statements may be sent to, if you are at home, this is the email address. It's public, P-U-B-L-I-C, dot comment, C-O-M-M-E-N-T, at templeterrace.com, or they can be submitted at templeterrace.com/public comment form, all one word. All emails must include the participant's name and city of residence, just as if they were here in person, and they should be of a length that can be read into the record within 3 minutes by our staff members. So the 3-minute time limit applies to those of you at home also. The other alternative is to call in. Persons wishing to provide public comment by phone for items listed on the agenda were invited to sign up to speak prior to the meeting and will be connected via a conference call. So we do have a couple people on the line that will be participating in the meeting that way. So I know there's some items of interest to everybody. Thank you for those of you who are persevering here in person rather. So the first item on our agenda, one more thing. We have two notable items on presentations. We have obviously the presentation on the proposed new sanitation system. We also have a presentation on our proposed projects that will be funded by the transportation surtax once those funds, if and when those funds are freed up. Now, normally during presentations we don't invite public comment, but of course we are on the trash program. That's why you all are here, I think most of you. So that we will. On the other presentation involving the transportation projects, we will not have public comment, but there will be an opportunity for you to provide public comment later. Tonight we will get the presentation. We will vote on these projects at our next council meeting. So rather than to take public comment twice, we're going to take it once at that meeting prior to our vote. So I don't want any of the members of the public to think that they didn't get a chance to speak on the transportation one. You will, it's just at the next meeting. So, and the council members, just some clarification for us. Okay? Very good. First item is the proclamation honoring law enforcement fallen heroes. If Chief Albano or Deputy Chief Seeley would come to the podium, please. Welcome, sir. These are my favorite part of the meetings. Right? So we have a proclamation from the Temple Terrace City Council to designate the month of September 2020 to honor the service of Florida law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty in 2020. And there's been a lot of them, folks, including those who have succumbed to COVID-19 while protecting our communities. And the proclamation reads, whereas 169 law enforcement officers in the United States died in the line of duty this year, including 91 who succumbed to COVID-19. Overall, this is a 67% increase from last year, according to the Officers Down Memorial page. And whereas Florida has witnessed 15 fallen heroes this year, 12 of whom died from COVID-19. Law enforcement officers willingly expose themselves to COVID-19 in the line of duty and their families when they return home. And whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty should be duly honored. And whereas the City of Temple Terrace also wants to raise awareness of the specific ongoing threat to law enforcement officers from the COVID-19 virus. Now I, therefore, Andy Ross, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the Mayor of Temple Terrace, Florida, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2020 as a month to honor law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty, including those who died from COVID-19. By having some of our law enforcement officers wearing mourning bands throughout the month, and we publicly salute the service of all law enforcement officers in the state of Florida. Chief, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, sir, I would. Thank you, members of council, Mr. Stevenson. I speak on behalf of the men and women of the police department, and thank you for that recognition for our fallen brothers and sisters. But the words on that parchment are really unnecessary because of what this council has shown, what's in your hearts, and what's in the hearts and has been shown by the citizens of this city in regards to the police department. Though much appreciated those words are, again, it's not necessary just by what our community has always shown us. And the love and respect that we receive from this council and from our community, I can rest assured that it is reciprocal from the men and women that wear this badge and wear this uniform. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank our community for always having our six, always watching our backs. Your police department cares about you, loves you, and appreciates everything that you do in support of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Chief, you run away too quick.
I'm smiling.
You could photobomb it.
Next item on the agenda is a presentation on the 2021 Transportation Surtax Project Plan. Public Works Director of Utilities, Troy Tinch, will present. Welcome, Troy.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. Troy Tinch, Public Works Utilities Director. If you'll recall at our last meeting in August, the August 15th meeting, I presented you all with a draft project plan for the calendar year 2021 for the surtax. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity to kind of peruse the plan and see if there are projects in there that you like, or if there are some projects that maybe you want to bring forward. So my plan tonight is to present the plan as it exists, the draft plan. After I present the draft plan, I'd planned on stopping at that point and maybe soliciting some comments from council, whether or not you wanted to add projects or take away. But I'm not sure if that's going to follow the quorum that you've spelled out, Mayor Ross.
We'll go however you want to do the presentation.
Okay.
We'll work, yeah, however you want to do it.
All right, well, so what I'll do is I'll run through the plan, we'll take a brief minute, then we'll talk about some alternatives and see if you guys want to add something or take something off of what we already have listed. So, and again, this is the 2021 surtax project plan.
We
Yes, ma'am.
don't have screens tonight. Can you let him know? Sorry, I didn't even know.
Absolutely. Give him just a minute.
I mean, we can look at that one.
Yeah. We have time to come out.
Tough.
Is everyone up?
We have them now, Troy. Yep.
Okay,
Almost.
almost. One more.
That's okay. Thank you. I was trying to like wait.
I didn't know what they were talking about. I had a screen.
There we go. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm sorry to
Okay,
interrupt.
I think we were ready to proceed. So again, this is the 2021 surtax project plan. This does run on a calendar year, it does not run on a fiscal cycle, so it's somewhat different from our budgeting process. And I was a little surprised when I received a phone call from the IOC saying, hey, we need to get the 2021 plan up and moving, because I think we all know it's in litigation, and basically has been since it was initiated in 2019. So we rather quickly pulled this plan together. However, I think it is a well thought out plan, and I think there's some merit to it. So keep that in mind when we're going through it. And again, at the end, we'll have some opportunities for discussions at that point. Just a little history. Again, this was all initiated in 2019 in January. That's when the surtax actually went into effect. We started collecting the extra penny on all sales tax. You, again, received the draft plan that I indicated earlier on the 15th of August of last month. Hopefully you had, again, an opportunity to review some of that. Moving forward, we will finalize the plan more or less tonight. I will bring the final plan in front of you at the next council meeting on the 15th for your approval through a resolution, at which point it will then go to the IOC by the 30th of this month, and then we will look to have them approve and certify the plan by about November. They usually take a month or so to review it, and then they get back to us and after our presentations and certify it. So the intent of the plan, well, it has not changed. The charter amendment language that indicated how the dollars were to be spent is pretty well spelled out. You have the maintenance and vulnerability reduction, you have congestion reduction, you have transportation safety, and network improvements. Now, one of the nice things about us being a small agency distribution is we're less than 5% of the overall revenue generated from the surtax. So we don't have to follow the percent breakdown, and that's why I've crossed all those off. However, we still have to follow the intent of the plan. So all the projects that we're proposing tonight, as well as the alternative projects, meet the intent of the language in the charter amendment and meet those 4 criteria. So for this year, We looked at about $2.1 million worth of projects. In our discussion with the MPO, they said we should be looking at somewhere around $2 million in revenue. We did overestimate a little bit because, again, these are estimates. And a lot of times these estimates or opinions of probable cost are a little bit higher than what we actually see. So we wanted to go slightly above that $2 million mark and indicate that if we've got the projects and the money is available, we're going to try and do as much as we can. We focused this year on roadway improvements and pedestrian paths and trails. So that said, the draft plan is as follows, and I apologize to the viewers at home for the fuzziness of this particular slide. It's very clear, unfortunately, in the plan itself, but when it was transferred over, it became a little bit convoluted. But basically what you can see here is the yellow represents roadway improvements. You see we have some roadway improvements proposed in the southern part of the city, the central and northern parts of the city. And you can also see a couple of small brown lines. Those are trail projects or a bridge project. So we're trying to kind of spread the projects throughout the city. The first project going from, of course, south to north that is transportation related is a full depth reclamation project. That's where, again, we go down about 6-8 inches of the surface and sub-base. We grind that all together. We mix it all together with some emulsion. We put it back down. We put a nice layer, 1.5 layer of driving surface on top of that. Really end up with basically a new roadway. We use this on roadways where we have some significant issues with the base, where we're seeing some base failure. It's a very cost-effective way to kind of redo the road and basically give you a nice new driving surface that would otherwise cost potentially millions of dollars. And the budget for this is about $750, about $750 or $250,000. And again, that is in the West River and East River areas of the city or the peninsula. The central portions of the city, we took Whiteway Drive and Druid Hills, and we're looking to do mill and resurface. This is your basic grind and resurface the roadway. But all those roadways, both the east, west, and north, south roadways within that central core there, we're looking to hopefully get to with the proposed dollars. And again, that's about a $1.2 million effort. The third and final roadway project is the northern portion of the city in Raintree. Now, the roadways up in the Raintree section are still in pretty nice condition. So what we're looking to do within that area is that double micro, and I believe I've, again, spoken about that in the past. It's a very thin layer of asphaltic material that we put down, maybe a ½ inch. And what it does is it really kind of rejuvenates that driving surface and gives you a good 6, 8, even 10 years of life to add to that. So very cost effective. You can see the dollar amount for that versus some of the others. It's a very cost effective manner to resurface those roadways. Now, as far as trail projects, or in this case, a bridge rehab project, this is the small pedestrian bridge that's located adjacent to Riverside Park. It is a wood plank bridge that's badly in need of repair and rehabilitation. So we're proposing to add that in for the 21 plan. In addition, we're looking at doing some design for a trail that would be located in the northern part of the city up in the telecom community. And that trail would actually, that design would take the existing hollow stump road, have a nice 10-foot width for a new trail. We would run that all the way from basically 127th up to Fletcher Avenue, which is where you see the entrance for Lettuce Lake Park. So that would provide a footpath or a foot trail for those that live in that community to gain access to the park. So that was the intent of that project for design. And of course, we would look at construction in 21 or 22. And in a nutshell, that basically wraps up what we're looking at trying to do for the 2021 project plan. Now, again, this is a draft. A couple things to keep in mind. We could go with the draft as it exists. We could add projects if you would like. If we do that, we of course need to subtract some of those projects out of there to kind of stay around that $2 million mark. Or we could leave it as is, and at any time in the future, during the 2021 calendar year, we can actually go to the IOC with a new plan, a new project, and remove one of the existing and add a plan. That is allowable. So if you feel like you're kind of being rushed into something, or maybe there's a project down the road that you want to look a little further into, we do have time and that can be done, and that is allowable. So that said, and again, apologize to the viewers at home, this is going to be a little bit of a hard slide to review. However, in the plan, it was unfortunately or fortunate for you, very clear, but these are the projects. They're color-coded. The yellow is for roadway resurfacing, the pink sidewalk, the kind of beige color or orangish color is pedestrian. You have green for bicycle. The bluish color or cyan is more of a multimodal, and then the purple is for wayfinding, so signage and roadway markings. So this is where I kind of planned on stopping and listing any comments that the council may have. If you have projects that you would like to see brought forward, we can discuss that. If you would like, I could quickly run through the alternatives. As you saw, there's a fairly extensive list, but I can quickly kind of run through that whole process. Or again, we have options of keeping the plan as is, or even keeping the plan as is and amending at a future date. So I know that I gave you a lot of options there, really 3 options, and I'm up for whichever of those you think you would like.
Council members, you did feel it's necessary for him to go through that whole list? I know it's hard for the public to see, but we've seen it. Have questions about the list as proposed?
I just have a question about the expenditures.
Yes, ma'am.
So we haven't been given the green light to spend any money yet.
We have
So-
not.
Okay, so well, this is our plan if we get the money.
Right,
Okay.
and again, it did catch me a bit off guard when I found out late July that, hey, we
Yeah.
need your plan for 21, because I think as I indicated, we all thought that this may actually all go away. But the IOC felt it important to have these plans in place, should it not go away. Should they deem that tax to be viable, and then say, okay, well, we'll go ahead and start spending. So we have money in our coffers, about $3.5 million, I believe, if Lynn is here to verify that. She actually is not. But it's $3.5 million, and then we look to potentially get another $2 million this year. So if they say, go for it, you guys are good to go, we have our 2020 plan that we can start with tomorrow. And then, of course, the 2020 plan, we can start tomorrow. The 21 plan, we would have to wait until January.
Yeah. I'm good. I just wanted to make sure the public knew that this is like tooth fairy money.
Yeah, it's out there, it's real.
Yeah.
It's just a question of, are they really going to allow us to spend it?
Correct. Mr. Sisler?
Yeah, thank you. 2 things. Number one, every time you speak, I learn a new word, wayfinding.
Wayfinding?
Okay. With respect to the 2020 plan, I don't remember what was on it. Are they rolling into did they go back into the master list, or?
So what we did in 2020 is we actually took everything,
Right,
the gamut,
right.
and said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pick and choose as a city. You are going to pick and choose as the council what projects we want to do. That threw the IOC for a bit of a loop. And they at first were very befuddled by this concept and actually almost denied our plan. However, I was very fortunate. They gave me an opportunity to re-present the plan to them, and they saw kind of what we were trying to do and agreed, and ended up almost getting a unanimous vote for approval, which was really good, because going in, it didn't quite look that way. So that said, the 2020 plan, basically everything that sits in front of you in this draft plan, all those projects, we have an opportunity to do any of those that we choose with the
Okay.
$2020.
I'm a little concerned with the commentary of them having to approve it. If I remember correctly, the way it was set up, we have to notify them. The actual approval of the projects at our level is not really required. If I remember the way the law was finally set up after the referendum was passed, we did not need to have their approval.
Right.
We needed to notify them.
That's correct.
And they needed to file with them. But we could put, as long as it fit those parameters, We could put anything we wanted in there.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
And there was some discussion about maybe they were overstepping a bit.
Yeah,
And,
Way bit.
and trying to kind of force us to say, you're going to do this.
yeah.
And I think when I had the opportunity to discuss that with them and explain that very thing, they did come around and say, you know
Okay.
what, okay, we see what you're doing, we understand. We're not necessarily saying you have to do this project. We're just saying all these projects fit within the plan.
And we can pick and choose.
Absolutely.
And I agreed with the shotgun approach, and we'll throw everything at them, and we'll do what we want to do.
Absolutely.
When we want to do it in our time frame. But it's,
I tried to simplify it this year just because last year it did create such a scuttlebutt, if you will. They were all scratching their head. I don't know why. It seemed very straightforward to me, as you indicated.
Right.
That we're just saying, hey, these are all these plans all are approved. We're going to do what we like.
so
And-
next meeting, what are we going to be doing? We're going to be approving the short list or the big list?
The short
The
list.
short
The
list.
short-
So the draft plan as it's proposed.
Okay.
The alternatives will go away, and we could bring those forward again later in '21. We could put those in the '22 plan.
Okay.
We could even do some of these in the '20 plan. Actually, we would be doing these projects out of the '20 plan.
Because I think what we're going to end up doing is they're going to overturn the referendum, overturn the law, but keep what we've got.
I think.
Because I don't see
I don't
an
see how that-
equitable
yeah.
mechanism to give it back. So I think that's what's going to happen in the
Right.
long run. But
And
that's
at
just
that
my
point-
personal opinion.
I would envision us all sitting down and saying, okay, we have $4 million here. Let's pick $4 million worth of projects that are going to best suit the city and get these done.
Because I think this master list has changed a little bit.
It
over
changed a little
last
bit.
year.
There's a couple things that have dropped off,
Yeah.
and I added a few things. that-
Probably just as well.
Yeah.
Cool, okay. Thank
Absolutely.
you, good job, thank
Yes,
you,
thank
good
you.
presentation.
That's the one more question.
Well, first of all,
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
I know that they encouraged, when they first started talking about, they encouraged municipalities to do joint projects.
Yes.
Have we been approached, or do we have on our list anything that would be a joint project, like to connect us to, USF or something like that?
Well, for instance, there's a project that's listed not in the draft, but as an alternative on Overlook. And as you know, they're putting a hawk at Overlook that goes across Bush Boulevard. So that's kind of a tie-in then, that would allow us to tie in with the DOT project, where we now have bicycle and pedestrian access then to kind of focus down Overlook to allow people to utilize that as like a multimodal transportation utilization. So that would be an example of that. As far as other projects that directly connect us to, say, the county, not necessarily, but again, I think as we'd hope this would grow, those projects would then
Yeah.
start to emerge. That unfortunately just hasn't happened because of the nature of the litigation, so.
That,
Thank you.
that,
No,
are you
that's
done? Okay, that leads me right into a comment/question that I had here. I've attended a number of meetings recently with various groups where they're discussing everything that's going on west of us along the Fowler corridor. And there's a lot between the Innovation Partnership and the VA, USF, the Mosey property is out for RFP. Nobody knows what's going to go there, but something's going to go there other than what's there now. The Yangling Center on USF campus, of course, the old Sundome, that's there. Plus, the Yangling Brewery is developing that property into a convention site / hotel, restaurant venue. So I say all that to say this, a lot of things have changed since we kind of hashed this out. And you answered one of my questions was, what's our ability to change this list if circumstances change? You already answered that we could. My other question is, does the council, I feel it's beneficial, does the council feel it's beneficial for us to reach out to, I guess Hillsborough County and Tampa would both be affected, and see if there's an opportunity for us to do some revenue sharing to build that segment of trail that's been on the books for years and years and years between, really behind the Publix over here, the old railroad right away, and it would connect us to Mosey, It would connect us to the pedestrian bridge over Fowler Avenue that goes right to the Sun Dome. It would connect us to the Yangling Convention Center that's going, not center, but
Yeah, it is.
site that's going in there. And then right across the street from that, there's a short trail system that's being developed that connects USF with another pedestrian bridge to the VA hospital. And then there's a trail system that's being built from the VA hospital down to the new Uptown development,
Okay.
which is the old University Mall. So I think the timing right now, particularly if, okay, even if this thing gets overturned, we're going to have $3.5, $4 million that we can still spend. If we could throw some of our money in, and Hillsborough County is willing to throw some of their money in, and Tampa's willing to connect, we're the big winner in this. I think it benefits Temple Terrace more than it benefits the other stakeholders. And if we can get them to work with us to build that, now I know it doesn't solve all our problems, because then we got to connect to the end of the trail into our city. But that's the big link.
Trailhead.
That's the biggest piece right there. The rest of it we can do with
Yeah, our own money.
with our own money, right? CDBG money, we can figure out how to connect to Overlook, which would get us to the south end of our county. Then we figure out how to go out east and connect it via Bullard and up. I mean, that's the big piece.
Correct.
And so, I don't know, what are your thoughts? You guys okay with directing them to reach out and see if there's any interest in doing this?
That's exactly what I was getting at, was that there's ways to make a bigger impact by connecting
Absolutely.
with others.
I mean, I understand the entrance, the importance of pavement rehabilitation. I mean, nobody wants to live on a street where there's potholes and
Right.
stuff. They redid my streets in my neighborhood. It's beautiful. I love it. But we're going to pave the streets with or without this tax, right? We already had a plan for rehabbing the streets. This just accelerates it.
Yeah.
This is something that we've always dreamed of.
And this very well could be the funding source for that.
Yeah. Mr. Stevenson, we haven't asked you. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
You know, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've been eyeing that corridor in connection to Mosey for some time. The problem's always been, one, we didn't have any money to do anything, and the second one is that nobody really knew what Mosey was going to turn into.
Well, we
all knew
still
Mosey
don't,
was leaving.
really.
So with the responses for an RFP that is out there for Mosey, we could certainly start this conversation with the county and the city of Tampa so that we get ourselves included in that conversation.
Right?
We can do that.
Is that the direction we'd like to at least
Yeah.
let them, okay.
Definitely.
Start talks with you.
Start the talks
Yeah.
before you contract with the paving company, so we have.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll have that opportunity, Mayor Ross, to do that at the IFC meeting, because I will have to, once you approve this plan, I will then take it to the IFC. They will approve it, but there's an opportunity then, you've got all the players at the same meeting, there's an opportunity for us to have that conversation
Well,
and start that process.
you do it as you see fit. If I would probably do it like
Sooner.
one-on-one contact with staff level
Sure.
first and say, hey.
What do you think of this?
Yeah, what do you think of this? You get a little buy-in before you go public with the thing in a room full of 30 people. I'd get a little buy-in first. That's just how it.
Absolutely.
Okay. I took us off track a little
Yeah.
bit. I don't have any real, personally, I don't have any heartburn with this, as long as we have the ability to,
Yes, we do.
okay. Other comments, questions, council?
All right.
Mr. Tinch, anything else? Have you gotten what you need from us?
I do, and I will bring the draft plan will be finalized, and I will bring it to you on the 15th for approval via a resolution. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Very well, thank you. Next item on the agenda is a presentation of the new solid waste collection program. City Manager Charles Stevenson, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you get me up?
Ryan, can you put the presentation up?
I'm sorry? Do some house cleaning here.
Take your time.
For some time now, we have been contemplating a new sanitation program for our residential residents here in town. And this is really a long overdue transition into moving into a semi-automated system rather than the system that we currently have. Currently, I mean, our crews are handling various types of cans, various sizes, bagged garbage, loose garbage, really pretty much whatever is put at the curb. And what we're trying to do is get it into waste containers that are a little bit easier to handle and certainly solve some problems for, one, efficiency and certainly some hazardous conditions with their guys picking up cans and heavy lifting and everything else. So we have had some instances in the past of some workers' comp claims that haven't been very serious, but obviously you only need one serious incident to start rolling up the dollar amount. So with that, right now, residents are providing their own 30-gallon trash cans. It's creating an inconsistent appearance and certainly difficult handling and unsanitary conditions on our city streets. Typically, these cans that we're dealing with now and with residents do not have attached lids. They have loose lids. We have found some of these lids after one of our storms that run through here. We find them in the storm system. They do cause some of the localized flooding that we have experienced here in town. So what we're trying to do is also eliminate that situation. In the coming months, we'll start making this transition to a semi-automated system of collecting residential trash only, not commercial, but residential. In order to do that, we have three distinct areas that we need to address. One is the retrofitting of our existing fleet of rear-loading vehicles, purchase of standardized receptacles, and certainly the collection of those receptacles. Our first step in this is retrofitting our existing rear-loading fleet. And that transition requires that we retrofit some hydraulic tippers on the backside of our rear loaders. We're looking at putting 2 tippers on each one of our 6 vehicles. We have 4 vehicles that we rely on, 2 and 2 that are backup. We're looking to transition, put tippers, the hydraulic tippers on each one of those vehicles. The reason for 2, obviously, is that we can service both sides of the street as we go down the street. And if we have one of the tipper fails, we're not out of business for the day. So there's some redundancy in the system. Here's a little video of what happens with the tipper. We did this as an example just to illustrate how these tippers and how the sanitation crews would handle the cans that we're looking at putting out in our residents. You can see it's got an attached lid. They will close the lid when they're done. They put it back where they got it from. Pretty clean operation. Second step. Let me back up here a minute. With the tippers, we cannot install these tippers ourselves. We've looked into that. It is a specialty installation. We will have to contract. There's a company that does this, that's familiar with our vehicles. Any maintenance in the future of their hydraulic systems, just like a lot of the other systems on these vehicles, we're looking at being able to take care of mechanical problems ourselves. But the installation, we need really have to have somebody that knows this. There's some welding and some cutting of steel, so on and so forth, something we can't do in-house. So we're looking for that to be done outside, but understand that in most cases, we're expecting to be able to repair these tippers in-house with our current fleet operation. The second step is to get into buying new receptacles. okay, and standardizing the receptacles that we have out on the street. Here on either side of me are the two cans that we're talking about. The brown can here is a 95-gallon can. This can is a 65-gallon can. They both have attached lids. That lid will not come off. We got a 10-year warranty on these things, and they're fairly durable. They'll last for a long time, unless they got run over by a car or a truck. The new receptacles, and again, beginning in this fall, and a lot of it depends on production schedules. This time of year, everybody starts ordering new replacement carts because of new budgets that come out. The manufacturer starts getting orders. So we're kind of at their mercy here when we get our order in order when these things will come out. What we're expecting to do is to deliver to every home that has a utility account with the city, one 95-gallon can or a 65-gallon can upon request. That will be up at the choosing of the resident. They can choose either one, either or. It comes with very large wheels and obviously the attached lid. Each of these carts will be branded with the city's name and a serial number that addresses, that assigns that serial number to that address. Public Works will create a master database that will keep track of where all these cans are. If we have to replace them under normal wear and tear, we're prepared to do that at no charge to the customer whatsoever. Normal wear and tear. We don't expect to have a lot of those unless somebody, again, runs over one or crushes one. The carts are very easy to roll to and from the curb and have the attached lids. As I said, they have a uniform design. They're attractive and will contribute to a tidy appearance in our neighborhood rather than some of the stuff that we're fixing to show you here in a minute. The carts will be, the initial cart that's issued by the city will be city-owned. The carts are going to be purchased out of the sanitation capital funds in 2021 in lieu of purchasing a new truck. We had traded that out on the budget, if you remember that in our budget discussions. Instead of buying the vehicle, we'll buy the cans and get this thing up and running. We're in good shape with our fleet. I think that we're okay with making that change to this. If a homeowner is interested in having an additional cart can be bought for $75. That is our cost on these cans are $65, and we added $10 in there for administrative costs and delivery, so on and so forth. The distribution of these carts is handled totally by our crews. There is no involvement for the customer whatsoever. We will deliver them, we'll create that master development or that master database, and we will keep track of those, and if somebody needs another can, they give us a serial number, we'll get them another can. So the smaller carts, again, are available. We've had that question asked a lot this week. People are wanting to know that the 95-gallon can may be a little big for them to handle. The 65-gallon can is for someone that would not generate that much garbage. I can tell you that I have one of those, and I got a 3-person household, and I have trouble filling it. So if, in fact, you have a large household and you want an additional can, we can make that available to you. You can purchase either a 65 or a 95. We don't care, okay? We will take an inventory before we order these cans and ask the public to tell us what they want. We will certainly try to accommodate that the best we can. We obviously will have some inventory that we will keep in-house for damaged carts or stuff like that so that we can replace these cans right away. Again, residents who desire an additional cart can purchase them through the Public Works Department for $75. Either one, a 65-gallon or a 95-gallon, we won't make any distinction between the two. All right, collection of the carts, and let's run through that real quick. I showed you how the tippers work and how the collection system will work. Another question that we've had quite a bit of comment on is this going to change my biweekly pickup? And the answer to that is no. We are not looking to go to one day. I know that there's been some rumors out on the streets that we're looking to do this to go to one-day pickup. The residential pickup will not change whatsoever. The holiday schedule and the holiday pickup will remain what it is now. We will not change this frequency whatsoever. Residents will continue to get twice-a-week pickup, okay? We do have, another question that we've had to field this week is we've got some what we call side door service with some elderly people or disabled people. We do have about 37 accounts where we actually go from the truck all the way to the house. We get the cart, the trash, the garbage, the rubbish. We bring it to the to the truck. We take it back to the house. That will not change. We will also continue doing that service. That service will not change. The city's looking to service up to 2 of these carts twice a week, as long as the waste is placed in the approved receptacle. Solid waste materials should not go into the receptacles and not outside the cart and adjacent to the ground. I'm going to show you a series of pictures here, and I need you to understand that these pictures were all taken last Tuesday, same day. This is not a conglomerate of a month's worth of garbage. This was all taken one day. So this is what our crews are dealing with. We're trying to avoid that. That is very unsightly. I'm not quite sure what the mixture of stuff is there, but it obviously looks as if someone cleaned out their garage, or we do have a lot of situations where a renter will move out and the owner just piles things up outside. We do have provisions for special pickup. I think everyone knows that. You get 1 free pickup during the year. If you want to pile that kind of stuff outside, the city will come by and pick it up at no charge. A second pickup will cost you, they charge you by the hour. That program will not change either. That program stays in place. If you've got stuff that needs to be picked up that can't fit in these carts, we'd be more than happy to come get it, okay? If you have a special occasion, this is another question that came up quite a bit here. If you have a special occasion, you've got a 95-gallon can or a 65-gallon can, and you have a special occasion like Christmas or Thanksgiving, the question was asked is, well, what if I have one bag that won't fit in there? I can tell you this, that our crews are very proud of their streets, and they will not leave that bag. On occasion, if you have an extra bag that you've got to put by the can, they will pick it up. Okay, I guarantee you they will pick it up. If it becomes routine that people are not having a volume of a can that can control what they've got in their house as far as waste is concerned, Public Works will probably end up visiting with them and ask them to buy another can. So that's kind of where we're at with that. We're trying to, again, eliminate that look right there on our streets. This has nothing to do with collection, but I'll throw this in now. We've had this question asked quite a bit, and I need to make sure that everybody understands and the public understands. The question's been asked. Now, this is a more efficient system, and we're going to get all this organized, and who's going to lose their job? And I'm standing here in front of me telling you no one's going to lose their job. That question's been asked. I know that's a concern of the residents, but I can tell you this now: no one's going to lose their job. Okay. You just run through. This is again. This is all taken within last week's garbage day. This is some examples of stuff that is inappropriate for the new program and should be discontinued. We have construction debris that's been put in cans. One of the things with that construction debris on the right-hand side there's exposed nails in there. You can't see them, but that's the kind of stuff that we don't need to subject our sanitation crews to. That kind of stuff, if that is in this can and they don't have to handle that can by hand, the tipper can take care of that problem, okay? Without the involvement of the sanitation crew and having them handle that kind of stuff. You know, our current method of collecting residential waste is really inefficient and it's time consuming. And obviously it's potentially unsafe for our sanitation crews. We're convinced that this is the way to go. We are one of the very few municipalities that aren't doing either automated or semi-automated. I'm surprised that we haven't done this long before now. This will also help us stabilize our cost, because now we know what we're collecting. We're not having to handle that kind of debris that's on our streets. That is very time-consuming for our crews to be picking up and handling. Very time-consuming. This provides a little bit of consistency with what they do at every resident. Oversized mattresses and oversized items like mattresses and furniture. Here's another example. Somebody put out two 4x4s that are about 10 or 12 feet long. I don't know what we're supposed to do with those, but we picked those up with the boom truck on a special pickup, not on a residential garbage truck. All right. We do provide, again, special pickup. If somebody's got oversized material, they got mattresses, appliances, furniture, we will work with the resident and continue the special pickup program that is in place. And hopefully that eliminates a lot of this that we're having to do extra here. So another question, here's a question that we've had had to field a lot of this week is the recycling. And I threw this in here. This has, this change in residential garbage pickup doesn't have anything to do with recycling. Recycling program will remain the same as it is right now. We will look at doing something with that here in the future. But for the time being, residents are asked to continue using their green bins for paper products. The metals and the plastics, we've placed strategically placed some larger bins for collecting metals and plastic. We seem to be having a lot of that being collected at those locations, some more than others, but that seems to be working out. Residents are still requested to take glass until we find a market for glass. There still is not a market for glass. We're asking them to continue, just put it in your garbage. It ends up going to the incinerator and it gets incinerated and it turned into rubble, basically. So, if I can go through some of the benefits of the system, there's a significant improvement in protecting our employees' health and well-being. That the tippers and the semi-automatic system negates the need for heavy lifting from our staff. These cans will hold a significant amount of weight, and they're uniform in look and appearance. There's a cut and paste picture of what a street would look like with the cans. It also stabilizes our cost. We will not have to deal with loose lids anymore. That becomes an issue that we will not have to deal with after storms. And again, we have found garbage can lids in our storm system that is causing us some problems.
How much more do you have, Mr. Stevens? I don't want to rush you, but I'm trying to move it along a little bit.
Well, I tell you, that's pretty much, I think I'm done, other than, I'm going to call Lori up here to just kind of go through what we've done to get this message out, as well as what we will continue to do once we start getting these things ordered and delivered and spread out into the community. So, Lori, if you want to come up.
Good evening.
Hello.
So I wanted to let you know how the message about this presentation was delivered to residents, and obviously word got out about it. First of all, we put information about the meeting and an explanation of the program on the city's website with links from the homepage, which included a little waving garbage can to make sure that people could find it. An email, text, or phone blast was sent out to all residents who have signed up for Notify Me, which you can do on the website on the homepage. We put posters and flyers announcing the presentation at the library and the Family Rec Complex. We put an explanation of the program and links to the page on the website on the city's Facebook page, as well as making a event page for this meeting. We put notices on the signs at Lightfoot, the library, and the rec complex, on the signs outside. We use the police department's electronic sign and deployed it throughout the city where we were able to let people know about this meeting. Obviously, this presentation is being broadcast on YouTube and our cable channels. Notices about the meeting and info about the new program are also available on the cable channel when the meeting is not running. There was, as we discussed at a previous meeting, a new phone line has been established that all you have to do is call in. It's not interactive, but there is a recorded message about this meeting, and I'll update it with different things, as we have more news. That number is 813-506-6644, and you call that and access the message. You also can't leave a message, but it does have the information. And obviously, you all were provided with a packet of information, hard copies of the flyers to give out if you encountered anyone who didn't know about it, as well as an FAQ sheet with suggested answers so that you were ready to answer questions. Now, almost all of these are the same methods that I've used to get the word out about, when we changed the rules on recycling, when we had events, when we used to have events, and other city announcements. One effort that I did that was very different, and I think made a huge impact, was spending time on Sunday afternoon correcting false or misleading information that was being posted by what I would like to think were well-meaning individuals on the community's many Facebook group pages. While those groups provide an important forum for residents to reimagine or reimagine, as the case may be, a better Temple Terrace, I would also really, really ask residents to use the official city sources, either online or email or by the telephone, to get the most reliable information regarding city services. I also personally spoke with dozens of residents by phone and hopefully was able to correct some misinformation and answer questions and concerns. I'm always easy to reach at 506-6406, so I would love to continue the conversation that way. And of course, on Facebook, I used my mom to demonstrate how easy it is to roll this. Going forward, obviously, I'll continue to offer information about the program and give status updates as we order the carts when the carts come in. We're going to develop a flyer explaining the program that we will put into the goodie bags at the Senior Expo later this month. We're also currently exploring ways to both poll residents regarding which size of can they would prefer, as well as to identify the best way to allow for that selection when we have the cans in hand. When the program is rolled out, we'll inform residents by many of the same methods. I'd also add that we will put a notation with the date that the carts will begin to be delivered in the city's water bill. A lot of people point to the water bill, and I just want you to remember that, first of all, 30% of our residents do not receive a paper bill. They pay online. And a full cycle of bills sending to residents takes about 4 weeks, so it's not a timely way to get out information. We are also developing an informational flyer or brochure that's going to be attached to every cart when they're delivered, so that people will have all the information, what goes in the cart, what doesn't, reiterating that the pickup times are exactly the same, that nothing else changes. And I recently discovered a translation service, so I'm really happy to announce that we will soon be able to add Spanish versions of a lot of our flyers and brochures, including these. I had a call from a woman who was struggling to translate the flyer that I sent out, And I put it into Google Translate and was able to translate it with the help of some of the women here who speak Spanish, so we will be able to offer translations. And that's, as they used to say at the EPG meetings, I'll stop there.
Okay, very good, thank you.
We'll currently try to answer any questions that come from ahead.
Well, I'm going to go to public comment first.
You have phone calls.
Yep. Okay, very good. Ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, I only have one request to speak on this item. If you'd wish to speak on it, there are forms available in the back of the room. Just fill one out with your name, bring it up to the city clerk, Ms. Mooney, over here, and you'll be allowed to speak. So the first speaker is Harry DeRoos. How do I say that? DeRoos, okay, very good. Welcome, sir. Please come up to the podium. Start with you.
Thank you very much. Actually, I got 75% of my questions answered. The first two that were most important got answered. The only one that I would pose is, can these things be used with yard waste?
We'll, let's take all the public comment so that we don't get caught up, but we will make sure that question is answered.
Thanks.
Good question, sir. We'll make sure you get the answer to that. I understand there's been some email correspondence, Ms. Hayes?
I got quite a few emails in the past week. Most of them I have corresponded with the people who sent them and been able to answer their questions. I'll go through, and a lot of them were repeat questions. Terry Lemke, which I think is how you say that, of Temple Terrace, asked, can trash bags still be set out for pickup, or does even the smallest bag need to be placed in the 95-gallon container? And I believe that question has been answered. Mr. Lemke also added, I want to thank you not only for your quick response to my emails, but also for chiming in on the Facebook sites for the city when it is warranted and providing facts. It's tiring to see so much speculation from residents, so hearing from a reliable source like you keeps things on track. We received an email from Jan Tumbleson, also residing in Temple Terrace. I look forward to having the containers at my house. The containers and trucks are a good idea. Number one, the containers roll to the street and back to the house. Number two, no position will be lost. Number three, lower rates for workers' comp. There are still questions to be answered. I have talked to people in Hillsborough County that love this service. I also received an email from Gloria Wallenstick from Temple Terrace, and she asked a question that many others echoed. And again, I believe it's been answered, but is it possible to get a smaller receptacle? We are seniors, and the largest receptacle will be hard for us to maneuver. We never fill our 32-gallon can now. If available, can it be used in place of the 95-gallon? Carol Dell of Temple Terrace wrote, I applaud the city on their new trash pickup program, but we do have a concern. From the flyer we received, it seems that every home will receive a new 95-gallon wheeled trash receptacle. This size is suitable for houses with a large family, but for a two-person household, it's entirely too large, and the 65-gallon receptacle will be more appropriate. Again, I think that's been asked and answered. Margaret Suddeth of Temple Terrace asked whether any current employees are losing their jobs with the new solid waste program. Again, that's a no. And she also asked how residents will dispose of their old garbage cans. Linda Garcia of Temple Terrace said, thanks for the excellent job the city has been done in communicating about this meeting and the upcoming changes in garbage collection. I have two questions. If we have a piece of trash that is taller than the new receptacles, will the trash be collected? And secondly, will items such as broken lawn chairs or a small table be collected? If not, where can such items be taken, and is there a cost for their disposal? Gina DeAngelo wrote, 1, I would like to know if the recycling will be changed to the new semi-automated system, and if so, when? If not, why not? And number 2, what will the process be for yard waste? And again, I think those were covered. And finally, an email from Stephen Galvin of Temple Terrace. He said, Honorable Council and Mayor, I am looking forward to the commencement of the new waste collection system. Having experienced the 95-gallon cans with automated lift in Pinellas County for over 10 years and now living with the current manual system in Temple Terrace for over 2 years, I greatly prefer and heartily support having the larger cans. Everything fits in it, even if you have a party or a large family. The lids stay attached in the wind, and your can will not be rejected by the lift should something stick above the top of the barrel. My wife and I are both over 62 years old and have no problem tipping and wheeling to the curb the 95-gallon can that contains only household garbage. Once we get our new barrels, I'm sure we will be questioning why we did not do this sooner. Thank you, City Manager and Sanitation Department Director. And those are all of the comments that I received on this.
Very good, thank you. And my understanding is that nobody is on the phone to comment on this item, but we do have some other people in the gallery. Meredith Abel, you're recognized, ma'am. Cheryl, are you making sure you're setting the timer, right? Okay. Welcome, Ms. Abel.
Thank you. My concern is with the number of tippers. Currently,
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear
the number of tippers.
the number.
So currently, there's 6 trucks, 4 in operation, maybe 3 in operation, and
All 6 are in operation.
the rest aren't back up?
There's 4 that we use on a normal basis and 2 that are back.
Okay. So regarding yard waste, having the tippers there might be in the way for putting yard waste in there, and some sanitation workers have reported that they're concerned the tippers will be in the way when they're lifting yard waste because they won't have a canister like this for the yard waste. So I was wondering, do tippers need to be on all of the trucks, or can some trucks be designated specifically for yard waste?
Well, we're going to, not like I said to Mr. DeRue, we're going to get to the end of this and try to answer all the questions at that point. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Abel. Mr. Gray, Jim Gray. Welcome, sir.
I just want to make a quick thing. What happens about vandalism? Somebody comes by and steals these gorgeous vehicles. Am I supposed to replace them at my cost? Are you going to help me out there? Or how do you, I know if they're serialized, who's going to go looking around finding them?
Good question.
I just wanted to know what vandalism, and we lose our can, what do we do?
Very good. I'll make sure that gets answered before the presentation is over, sir. Are there any other members of the public? That's all the emails and nobody is on the phone. So Mr. Stevenson, I know the answer to some of these, but if you'd like to come up. First of all, the question of yard waste. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Stevenson. This tipper bin system does not impact yard waste at all. Your yard waste pickup days will remain the same. Yard waste will continue to be picked up manually as it is now, not using these receptacles. Somebody mentioned what can they do with their old trash cans? Well, they can't use them for household garbage anymore. You can only use these. But you can use your old trash cans for yard waste because those will continue to be picked up manually. So I bought, foolish me, I bought lifetime garbage cans, right? Thinking I'll never have to replace these and they'll last forever. They'll be here after the apocalypse. But now I have these trash cans I can't do anything with, but you can still use them for yard waste. So in terms of the tippers being in the way of the yard waste, I've not heard that. I've talked to our crews, and that I don't know if it's true or not, but Ms. Abel, but that's the first time tonight, you saying that's the first time I've ever heard that. And I've not heard that from, so I can't, obviously, I don't work on the trucks, I can't definitively say that it's not, but I've not heard that issue. Maybe we can get you a more complete issue, but that's not something that Ray and his crew, Mr. LeBlanc and his crew has never brought that up. In terms of the theft and vandalism, Mr. Gray, I think, brought that up. I think I know the answer, but I'll let you defer because there's some ifs and ands on this one. So could you give the full answer?
That's probably one of those things you probably need to talk about, because that's one of the things I never even thought about.
Well, you did put something in there if it's stolen or, because they're all
Well, if
serial
it's-
numbers.
Yeah, if it's damaged from normal wear and tear, we replace it. I mean, the city will replace that can. If somebody steals the can, I don't know that I even thought about that, quite honestly. Certainly, if we have a resident that says their can was stolen, we'll give them a new can, okay? If it becomes a real problem, then we probably need to readdress it and find out who's stealing our cans. So the cans will be branded, and they've got a serial number on them. And they've got their own color. They're not like Tampa's, they're not like Hillsborough County. We made them different. So we start to have to go out in the neighborhood and find out where our cans are. We'll have to do some detective work, I guess, but we really had not anticipated.
Do you know, does Tampa have a problem with that? Because they've been doing this for a long time. Do they have an issue?
I know that Hillsborough County does a little bit. I don't know that it's exorbitant. I know that we've had some Hillsborough County cans show up here in Temple Terrace. Not to say that they're stolen, but I don't know that that's going to be an issue. And to answer the tipper question and the yard waste is going to remain the same. And we do encourage people to repurpose their cans, the 30-gallon cans. The tippers will not be in the way of the tippers run flush with the back of the truck, so they will not be in the way. I mean, they come up, they retract back flush with the back of the truck. So we're not anticipating that to be a problem.
They go like underneath the back of it when they're not in use? Is that where
The
they-
back of the truck is kind of sloped like this,
Yeah.
kind of like a curve underneath. They fit back underneath there. They fit flush on the back. They don't stick out. So,
Okay, did that help?
I think the concern was that since the same trucks are being used,
oh, they're the same trucks that we're using, yes.
they thought that there might be an issue with where the tippers are making it difficult to put yard waste.
We're not anticipating that to be a problem.
I think that were all the questions, I'm sorry.
Extra long pieces that are coming out of the top of the.
The extra long pieces, quite honestly, if you have some extra long pieces or you have an extra bag that'll fit on the top of this, put it on the top, make it stick out. The tipper will handle that. Now, I'm not talking about an 8-foot board. I mean, I think, hopefully everybody's realistic about this. If you have something that is sticking out of the can that high, is a gauge, I guess, we can pick it up.
Okay. Council member questions, comments? Mr. Chalua?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple comments I'd like to make. One is I'd like to know when the start date would be. I know it was said late fall and early winter, and my suggestion would be if this is going to go forward, it'd be January 1st to get people through Christmas and all the big parties they have, because you're going to have a bunch of trash out there, and then you gives them beginning January 1st, gives them a little time to get accustomed to this new cycle. That's one comment. The next comment is, if you are going to in fact pick up a bag on occasion that somebody puts on the side of the garbage can, that needs to be put into the ordinance. Because when the city manager is long gone, or the public works director is long gone, sanitation director, not public works, somebody else can interpret it totally differently. I lived through it when Jerry Sieber was here. Whatever Kim Linebaugh said was, well, we're going to read what's in black and white. Also, it may be advantageous to put in that code that no item shall be longer than 3 feet or 4 feet, so you can't have that. They know that it's in there, it's explained, because what we're talking about here today is great, but 5, 6 years from now, when there's different folks running the city, or 10 years from now, whenever it may be, they may interpret it differently. So that's just a suggestion I have, just to clarify it as far as that goes. Just the start date and maybe some language in the ordinance that describes a little bit of what will happen. And on occasion, a bag will be picked up. If it's a continual problem, the customer will be asked to make arrangements for an extra can or something, just so everybody's on the same page, that's all.
Well, we could certainly put that with some of the information that comes out with the can. We've got some informational packet that will be attached to the can, so that everybody has, and it'd be a good FAQ that we can put with the can.
Okay.
What if, so.
Couple more comments and questions, but let me say something, if you don't mind, before I'll forget. One question that you didn't ask was, is the proposed 3.4, I think it is, % increase in sanitation fees in the budget this
Correct.
year? I want to clear up any confusion on this, because you're going to hear later that there's a 3.4% increase in sanitation fees. The logical assumption would be, oh, they're raising the sanitation fees in order to fund this transition. But in actuality, that's not true. It's a little fuzzy, government accounting is a little, but there's different buckets of money, if you can envision it that way. The bucket of money that is going to pay for the tippers and the trash cans, those are two, actually coming out of two different buckets of money. The trash cans are the big piece. That's coming out of a capital fund where we were going to buy a truck. So we're postponing the purchase of that truck and taking that money to buy the cans. The fee increase, sanitation rate increase, is going into another bucket of money. That bucket of money that's going into is the bucket of money that pays the tipping fees when we go to empty the trucks, dump the garbage. That bucket of money needs to be maintained at a certain level to meet our accounting thresholds and to have enough reserves, buffer in that. And that account is because of the increased outgo of tipping fees. The county's raised the tipping fees, plus we're picking up more garbage since the COVID crisis. So that increase in payout of the tipping fees is what's driving that rate increase of 3.4%. So even if we weren't doing this at all, we would still have to raise your garbage rate 3.4%. Different buckets of money. So I just want to clear up any confusion. And I'm sorry, Mr. Schuster, you were next, and then Mr. Chambers.
No
Good point.
problem. Thank you, Mr. I think the program's going to be very good. It is long overdue. I can't imagine what our workman's comp rates will go down to and our experience modifications will drop. So I think that'll be a benefit all over. So I'm glad that it's moving forward. I agree with the January 1st start date. That makes more sense and it probably fits into your timing schedule better. And then on another note, very, very good job in the presentation, not in the verbiage, but in the effort that was put forward. I know I had raised questions about it at the last meeting, and I recognize that you didn't do a heck of a lot different than what you've been doing in other stuff, but it was just very, very evident, and I think you all did a great job in getting the information out to the citizens, and well, you tell by the turnout that we've had that you did a good job on this. Thank you very much for your efforts. That's all I have.
Mr. Chambers.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank you again on the presentation and the effort behind this whole program. It's definitely long needed to protect our employees. Ms. Hayes, thank you for your efforts on the communication. Appreciate that. A question though, your samples of your trash cans, can we get extra cans, samples put at the rec center, the library, and other locations so people have an opportunity to go by and look at them so they can make a better decision? Do you have more than two samples?
Get some extra cans? We
Huh?
can see, we'll do what we can, if you want to do that, yeah.
Yeah, they don't have to have our logos on them, but if you get them, since we have some Hillsborough County cans around, maybe.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I actually spent a weekend doing those logos myself, so it was rather tedious.
You stayed within the line.
Huh?
That's
It's
good.
crooked, but that's okay.
I'm sorry?
It's crooked, but that's okay.
It wasn't crooked when I put it on.
All right.
That's it.
Anything
But
else
I
on
appreciate,
this?
My only question is, I like the January idea because it will give you time to get a good process for selection. Right now, it's not like people can vote on November 3rd for the can they want. That'd be nice, but can't do that. So we need a clear process for people. There are going to be people who want to pick their can tonight. They're going to start looking for that on the website. So let's just make sure that we tell them that we're going to get the message out the same way we got the message out before. I will tell you that anybody who's approached me, just a little bit of conversation, they were all in. And the number one question was, how do I get my can? After they asked, I'm not going to lose my favorite garbage man. Okay, so that was number one, actually.
yeah, we tried to field a lot of these calls, and I think we answered a lot of the questions that people had, that residents had, but I'll see what I can do about getting some of the cans. We can put them on display.
Thank you.
And again, we're sitting there guaranteeing no one's going to lose their job. Okay, we have plenty of things that we can do in order to keep the crews busy. A lot of this scheduling, we've got to get the tippers going. That's going to take some time to do because they can only do one truck at a time. So, the first of the year may not be a bad time that
Okay.
we shoot to get this out.
Speaking of scheduling, we should move on. We have a long agenda. So.
I'm done.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, just because we passed this item, if you're at home or you think of questions later, we didn't stop answering your questions. Call Ms. Hayes and we'll be happy to continue to answer questions. So the next item on the agenda is library board appointments. There are 2 vacancies on the Temple Terrace Library Board. The city received applications from Gloria Berkowitz and Sarah Junke. I hope I'm saying that correctly. I would ask for a motion. Are either candidate here, applicants here? Okay, very good. If acceptable, I'd entertain a motion to approve the appointments of Gloria Berkowitz and Sarah Junke as members of the Temple Terrace Library Board for terms extending from September 3rd, 2020 until September 3rd, 2023.
So moved.
A motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? No nays. Motion carries. Thank you very much for your volunteerism, ladies. Consideration of the minutes. We need to approve the minutes of the August 18th, 2020 City Council meeting. If the minutes are acceptable, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any corrections or comments on the minutes? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays. The minutes are approved. Persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda, which we don't have. So we have a 3-minute time limit will be imposed on all comments from the public. We've asked that speakers come to the podium and state their name and city of residence during public comment on items not on the agenda. The city manager and directors in attendance do make note of these items. And I would like to assure all of you that your comments are taken seriously and followed up upon. I do not have any requests to speak at this time. If anybody would like to come forward and speak on items not on the agenda. Going once, going twice. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the first reading of an ordinance granting a franchise to People's Gas Systems Incorporated. Alan Denham of TECO Regional Manager will explain. Mr. Denham. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Good evening.
Just want to take a few moments to, one, let you know this is one of the first times I've been out in public after 5 months of working at home, so I was glad that my suit fit and I knew how to still tie a tie. But thanks for the opportunity to be here. I just want to provide a few minutes of update on the ordinance that's before you. This is an ordinance that will bring about another franchise agreement for People's Gas, which is the gas provider for the city of Temple Terrace. Just a little bit about People's Gas. Some folks may not be as familiar with that company. It's a sister company of Tampa Electric Company, part of the TECO and Amera family. It's been around for over 125 years and started in Miami, and we have 400,000 customers throughout the state of Florida, most of the major markets, 600 plus employees, and we manage 18,000 miles of pipelines. In Temple Terrace, there are 325 gas customers. Of those, about 2/3 of them are residential. So what's before you is a new franchise agreement. We have had a franchise agreement since 1990 that allows the city, allows People's Gas to operate in the public right-of-way and keep our gas lines and maintain those gas lines. And in doing that, the city has provides a fee or charges us a fee that we collect from customers and then reimburse to the city. Annual revenues in 2019 were about $16,000. The last agreement was a 30-year agreement in 1990. And so we're moving forward after discussion with the city manager and city attorney. Agreed on language that's before you. Key features are similar to what we had before, another 30-year term. Franchise fee remaining at 6% of gross revenues. And one change that's a little different than what was previous is that there's a new type of gas customer that was not around in 1990 with our last agreement, and that is called a transportation customer. Has nothing to do with other transportation items that were discussed tonight. This is actually the transportation of gas. There are the availability of third-party marketers that can actually provide and sell the gas commodity to an end-use customer, and they transport that gas through the People's Gas system. And when that came about in about 2000, so that was not a delivery method for gas the last agreement. So in talking with the city manager, thought that it'd be worth including that in the agreement, putting that there is an option. That would impact about another 79 customers that currently get their gas through the transportation process. Those are typically larger users of gas, restaurants, hotels, industrial customers typically. So general information about the franchise agreement, I hope will be helpful, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
We're good. Prior to any questions, are there members of the public who'd like to address this issue? Seeing none, I understand there's nobody on the phone for this issue. Ms. Hayes, is there any correspondence on this issue? So none, okay. Council members, questions? No questions from Mr. Chiller, or you recognize?
Good evening, and thank you for your presentation. Is there any plans to expand the gas line in the city anywhere? I know not just a very small.
No broad plans to expand. We expand as customers request gas service, either residential or commercial customers. Some of those opportunities may be in areas where there's development, the redevelopment area. There may be customers in that area that would require gas service, so we would extend the service lines to those. So that's our primary way we would expand gas service.
But if somebody requested, it's got to be feasible. I mean,
It's got to be feasible, and it's got to be cost effective. And that's a decision that the customer would want to make. If they requested gas service, we would look at the feasibility. The main thing is looking at where a main gas line is, or where gas is existing, and then how it could be, how easily and how cost effectively it could be extended to the customer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No other questions. I'll ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance. Thank you, Mr. Denham. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, granting to People's Gas System, a division of Tampa Electric Company, its successors and assigns, a non-exclusive natural gas franchise agreement, allowing the use of public rights-of-way within the city and setting forth the terms and conditions under which said franchise may be exercised, making findings, providing an effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Very good. If the ordinance is acceptable, I'll call for a motion to approve it on first reading.
Move to approve on first reading the ordinance granting a franchise to the People's Gas System.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? The nay sign? No nays. Ordinance passes. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, Mr. Denham. Next item on the agenda is a resolution to adopt preliminary site plan SPR 20-02 for the Gas Bars Patio Bar and Grill Restaurant located at 8448 North 56th Street. Planner Celeste Liu will explain. Welcome.
Good evening.
Brian, can you bring?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Tonight, the item I am presenting is SPR 20-02, which is preliminary site plan for Gas Bars Patio Bar and Grill Restaurant. The restaurant is located at 8448 North 56th Street. The applicant has submitted this application to demolish 2 existing single-family residences and expand the parking lot for the existing restaurant. The 2 homes are located at 5416 and 5418 Rainbow Drive, which is located directly west of the restaurant. The restaurant itself is located in the community redevelopment area. However, the 2 homes are not within that overlay district. Currently, the uses are restaurant, bar, liquor store, and single-family residential, and the subject site's approximate size is 1.6 acres. A little history about this site. The restaurant itself has received prior conditional use approvals as well as site plan approvals. These approvals were for expanding the outdoor seating, expanding and modifying the existing lounge, as well as rearranging some of the uses within the building itself. Since the start of this application, there has been some neighborhood opposition towards this item. The city has received letters as well as phone calls from neighbors stating their opposition to this development. Due to that, city staff held a neighborhood meeting on June 25th, 2019. And when the applicant reached back out to city staff earlier this year to jumpstart this application process, city staff also recommended to the applicant to hold a neighborhood meeting as well, just to address any concerns or questions that the neighbors might have. And the applicant had done this on June 21st of 2020. Again, this application is being submitted to demolish 2 existing homes to expand the parking lot for the existing restaurant on site. The parking lot currently has 62 spaces. The parking addition will add an additional 45 spaces. The applicant is also proposing to extend fencing and landscaping all around the new proposed parking area to screen the vehicles from the residential neighborhood. This is the preliminary site plan that was submitted by the applicant. You can see the roadways that are adjacent to the property in blue. The orange shows the existing parking as well as the restaurant, and the purple portion show the proposed new parking area. And this is the fence rendering submitted by the applicant. It's a little hard to see because it's in black and white, but this essentially shows the corner of Rainbow and Ridgeway Drive. With this application, the applicant is requesting one waiver from the city's land development code. The waiver is from section 12-861E1A, and it's to allow for a 10-foot high fence in a single-family residential district. Currently, the maximum height for a fence in a single-family residential district is 7 feet. And again, here, this site plan just shows where the proposed 10-foot fence would be, as indicated by the red line. If council were to approve this application tonight, there are some additional conditions that staff would like to see the applicant comply with. The first being contingent upon the city council approving the preliminary site plan. A final site plan application must be submitted with all applicable and required site plan application materials. The second is that the final site plan must be approved by city council before the issuance of any permits, and the property continues to be subject to previously approved conditions in the prior conditional use and site plan approvals. And with that, per Land Development Code Section 12-923, staff recognizes that the applicant's request is allowed. Residential property or residentially zoned property are allowed to be used as parking. However, staff also recognizes that City Council has had challenges in the past with similar requests and applications like this. Therefore, staff recommends Council to examine the application and materials for preliminary site plan SPR 20-02 to either approve or deny the resolution, subject to the waiver and any conditions Council recommends. That concludes staff's presentation. Both staff and the applicant are here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Thank you. Prior to questions, though, we'll take public comment, and we'll go through our list, and then we'll have our question period. So the first person signed up to speak is Ms. Rennie. Welcome, Ms. Rennie. Hello.
Hold this down just a minute so I can talk. My name's Annette Rennie, 9512 Woodland Ridge Drive, and I've known Jimmy Chacho for years. There is not a kinder man or one that would give in any way, shape, or form or provide for people. This is not just a bar, it's a restaurant. I don't drink. I go there and have dinner, lunch. You can sit on the patio, listen to music, anything you want. I've even had rescue dogs there where he's allowed us to come with rescue dogs to have people look at them. I see no problem with this. We've granted other people on 56th Street, a good friend on Fletcher, residential property behind for parking. And I feel that this is a local man who lives in this area with a good business, and we need to go ahead and grant him this ordinance or this resolution. We need to push it through. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rennie. That's the only person in person. Mr. Paul, I understand we have a couple people. Are they still on the phone, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I am still showing 2 callers on the call. The first gentleman is a resident of the city, and his name is Mr. Miles McLaughlin. Mr. McLaughlin, go ahead and state your name, city of residence before you start to speak, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Miles McLaughlin. I'm at 5415 Rainbow Drive, Temple Terrace, Florida, 33617.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
And
You have 3
am I able
minutes.
to keep speaking?
Yes,
Okay.
you're recognized, sir. Go ahead.
This is the second round for this proposal going in for the demolishing the 2 single-family homes. I live directly across the street, and all the homes directly across the street from this project are 2-story homes. We're built on top of hills. Now, this project was squashed last year for concerns. We met with the city manager over this. There were changed dates on the to go to city council with this whole thing going through. This is way before COVID. Our concerns of all the neighbors around this project is that we're going to be overlooking a bar parking lot where we've moved into a quiet road. Our property values are going to plummet when this thing goes in. Every effort's been made to circumvent any zoning laws or anything. He's planning on not paving this place. He's planning on putting in gravel in there, so it's not considered actual zoning commercial area. There's already problems with the bar being loud, trash all over the place. Our only buffer in between this is the homes on that side of the road. Everybody there has been very unhappy over the years with the bar being there. He purchased these 2 homes over there to demolish for this parking lot. Aside from our property value, plummeting on the homes, our homes, we all own 4-bed, 3-bath, 2-story houses. Even if he puts up a 10-foot high wall or fence, we're overlooking from our front porches the parking lot. And if we go to sell our homes, the people looking at our homes are going to be families with children that are going to be purchasing in a bar parking lot. This is not why we purchased our homes. We purchased on a quiet back street. Let me see. What else did I want to say? Last year when we went through this whole thing, we met with the city manager after we couldn't get into the city council meetings, and it seemed to have stopped over the years. There were several of the homeowners trying to sell their homes at the time, but couldn't get contracts on the homes because everybody had to disclose into the contract this project that was about to happen. They lost several buyers on their homes. The real estate agents and the mortgage companies would not go forward with any mortgages on the property until they found out this wasn't going to happen. And now several of the neighbors are thinking about selling just because it's been a headache over the last year and a half trying to stop this from happening. And, and now it's only been a day since the notice went out. I noticed it yesterday morning, the board getting put in, where it said there's going to be a city council meeting, trying to revive his project up there. And we've tried to organize the neighbors really quick trying to get this going on. But with COVID going on, people can't get inside. People are outside waiting. We all tried to call in to speak about this.
Mr. Laughlin,
Nobody
Mr. Laughlin,
around,
sir.
nobody around this is on
Mr. Laughlin, your time is up, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Laughlin, your time is up. I gave you an extra 20 seconds because you were 20 seconds before you got going, so I let you go a little longer, but your time
Okay.
is up, sir.
I
Thank you
appreciate
very
that.
much.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more caller on
Brandy
the line that would
Taft?
like to speak on this item.
Hi, yes, I'm Brandy Taft, residing at 5415 Rainbow Drive, which is also directly across the street from the proposed parking lot.
Proceed, ma'am.
Yes, if you would, council members, please think about your home for a minute in a quiet neighborhood. Now think about the two houses directly across the street from your home. Imagine if they were to be demolished and a bar parking lot was to be put in their place. I am positive not one member of city council would want that. The bar's owner, Jimmy, may be your friend, but he is only one man, and his goal is only financial gain. If you allow two houses to be demolished and a bar parking lot in their place, our property values will plummet. The houses directly across the street are two-story on a hill. It doesn't matter how tall or pretty he makes a fence. We're going to be looking at a parking lot from our front porch. And I don't care how pretty a fence is. If you were to walk outside your front door and you looked across the street, would you want a 10-foot fence and a parking lot that you clearly can see into because you live on a hill? Please, as elected officials, do what you know in your heart is best for the community instead of just one man's bank account. Thank you. Also, a comment on that slide that he showed earlier about the how large this is. It's crazy. It's the whole block. It's the whole corner. And he did this before with another piece of property. He just demolished homes and created a parking lot. And it's awful. I mean, this is a bully in our neighborhood that is ruining our property values. And if you do it right and what is best for the members of your community, you will say, no way, and we're not going to listen to this anymore. This is a crazy thing for us to even think about having to deal with. That's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being honest.
Thank you, Ms. Taft. So were there other members of the public present? I only had one form, but if there are other members of the public present that'd like to stop to speak, now's the time. I see somebody coming up. Sir, just ask that you start with your name and city of residence, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Biff Crane. I'm an attorney representing Mr. Chacho in this matter. My address is 606 East Madison Street, Tampa, Florida. Been practicing 35 years, and I've never shared the podium with trash cans before. So it's kind of a new experience.
I think it's a first for us, too.
What I wanted to do tonight, I have a relatively brief presentation about what we're asking for and what we're not asking for. What we're doing is we're trying to eliminate one of the problems that we have complaints about, which is the parking outside the parking lot area of the business. That's one of the issues that come up from time to time, where our patrons are having to park outside on busy nights. So what my client has done is he's purchased two properties, and he wants to add 45 parking places to service his patrons. There's no increase of any square footage of business. There's no increase of usage. It's just simply doing that. And we asked for that under section 12-923 of your code, which allows him to do that and says he may park on that subject to the approval of a site plan that deals with 9 criteria that are in the code. Now, we've dealt with each of those 9 criteria. Our site plan is consistent with all of those 9 criteria. I have gone through them in detail in the application that we've submitted. And I don't know that I need to go one by one, but suffice it to say, having satisfied those criteria and nothing in the record contravening that, my client may proceed with this under the law, because that's the law in section 12.923. So, that being said, we did reach out to the community, not once but twice. June 21st, we had a hearing, public meeting at Jimmy's restaurant, and 2 people showed up. and left with great big doggy bags because we had planned for a much larger crowd. Following that disappointing turnout, Jimmy directed me to re-mail the entire notice area and give them his cell phone so they could call him direct with any concerns or questions. And to date, we've had no calls. So we are
That doesn't apply to you. You're the petitioner. Just let it beep for a second and it'll be, okay, you're good.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want these exploding gas garbage cans to get. The way the code is set up is it says the property owner on the CG property, which Mr. Chacho is, may park on R10 and others. So we have the right to do that subject to this site plan. We have submitted a site plan that shows that from a locational criteria that's contained in subsection 1, we meet that. There are no intervening roads that run between the original property and this property that we're going to add the 45 spaces on. As far as I can get my glasses here now. As far as the second criteria, we're not using the R10 zoning for any other purpose, just parking lot, and if we need a pond or something, or some kind of transference of water. That's all, that's all we're allowed to do, that's all we want to do, that's all we show on the site plan. So we're consistent with section 2. We're not actually going to do anything under subsection 3 that gives us any more access to the city streets. We're not asking for any more access. We're happy with the access we got. We have no additional points of access. We have no points of access on Rainbow Drive, and we have no changes to our points of access, only additional parking capacity. So we're consistent with subsection 3. We're not going to have any cars or pickups there overnight, consistent with subsection 4. All the subsection 5 requires is that the parking will be of an approved surface. We will do that through permitting. The ingress and egress is going, again, to be only current access points that we have. So we're consistent with subsection 6 of 12-923. And we are also consistent with subsection 7, which discusses, the fencing and screening. Now, we met, we had a conference call on July 28th. And I told the staff at that time that we were withdrawing the request for a 10-foot wall on that one section. We followed that up after we got our hearing date with an email. We'd like to formally withdraw our request for the waiver. We don't need a waiver. We're not going to go up to 10 feet. So a waiver will not be required, and you can delete the subsection or the section 3 of the resolution that was granting that waiver. Lighting is necessary. Lighting is necessary for safety of our patrons and our employees. It will be directional. It will be shielded. Once we have the final configuration of any ponds or anything that will have to be on the property, we will make sure that when we bring TECO in, that all the light goes towards the building. And that's consistent with criteria number 8. And finally, and relatively easy, there's no signs 6 feet of height or greater. So we're not looking at putting any type of billboard or anything like that in this area. So our request tonight is to go ahead and give us the go-ahead with the preliminary site plan. Let us move on to final site plan and get that back before you, then go to permitting and get this project done so we have additional capacity of 45 spaces for the parking. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Before we get to questions, let me first apologize to you and to Mr. Chaccio for not giving you the opportunity to speak prior to the public comment. Please forgive us. Our agendas are a little out of the ordinary these days with all the COVID stuff, and so we're trying to adapt, and I should have given you the opportunity to speak prior to public comment.
That's okay.
So what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is to finish with public comment, because we weren't quite through. I didn't realize that. So if you don't mind, I'd like to finish with that portion now that you've made your presentation. And then, depending on the council member questions, we may have questions for you at
Okay.
that point.
I'm not going to.
Thank you. Please accept my apologies for the clunkiness here.
Thank you.
Okay. Other members of the public present who'd like to comment? If not, I think, Ms. Hayes, we have some correspondence.
I had one email on this issue from Jan Tumbleson of Temple Terrace, and she wrote, living in Temple Terrace and years in the area, I have known the Chaccio family for years. They have always supported the Temple Terrace community, as others in the community have done. This parking lot expansion will enhance the area, no parking on the street, screened-in area, lights will be directed to the parking, and people will be safer in the area. People will be safer in the parking area. I hope the council will approve this parking lot expansion. And that's the only comment I received.
Good, thank you. That concludes our public comment. Council member questions?
So I do have a question. There were other letters that were mailed to us and emails. Do those not go into the record tonight, or?
I didn't get any. I don't know.
They were part of the packet.
Well, they're already public record.
If they're in the packet, then they'd be public record.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they're all in opposition. So, okay.
But you can use that if you want to lead off asking questions. You're welcome. Would you like the floor?
No, I have some questions. So whenever you're ready for me to ask questions.
I'm ready.
Okay.
You're recognized.
Okay, thank you. There's no denying that Mr. Chaccio is a great guy and he's a good man in the community, but that unfortunately is not what we look at. We don't just give waivers to people we like. We look at all businesses the same. So please understand, Mr. Chaccio, this is not personal if it doesn't go your way tonight, and who knows, we're going to start talking. I do have some questions of staff. When we changed this designation and to allow for this, it goes to a commercial zoning, all of it? No? Okay.
No, there's no zoning change at all. Under Land Development Code Section 12-923, residentially zoned property like R10, R9, R7 are allowed to be used as parking. So there's no zoning change at all.
Okay. So what happens if the business is sold and it's not Gas Bar's Bar and Grill? It's, I don't know, something else. The parking stays the same, right? It stays connected to the building.
I believe so. I know that Jimmy owns both those residential lots right now. So if he decides and chooses to sell it, I think he can sell it as one property. I'm not sure if he would separate that. I don't know.
I mean,
if
could it
that's
go back to being residential?
Well, it's still zoned R10.
It's gonna
and
be
it will
residential.
still- Yeah, it could possibly.
Okay. And what would prevent the building from enlarging onto that property?
Zone. It's not zoned that way.
Yeah, so, right, correct. So it's zoned R10. If he were to expand his restaurant and business into that property, he would have to rezone those lots to
Okay.
commercial general or
So-
another zoning district.
All right. So I will tell you that, all of those answers sound great, okay? The only comment that doesn't sound great is that, on my street, all the houses there's a sight line, and everyone knows, this is where the houses start and this is where they end and whatever. So when this changes, this is forever going to change this neighborhood. And, you know, we have wrestled with this time and time again. And I believe that the reason, and I could be wrong, maybe somebody can tell me, I'm okay on that, that the reason it came to us last year, that there was, we had just gone through a pretty intense discussion on whether or not to encroach into a neighborhood. In one of the cases, we did not recognize that I did not recognize that the opinion of the neighbors was more than an opinion. I mean, they actually visually could tell you whether they were impacted by trucks, okay? But we gave that one because we were told we couldn't go with opinion, okay? So tonight, we have a lot of opinion, but the opinion happens to be of people who live there. And I really have a hard time doing that. And you know, I know that the restaurant is a popular place in town, and a lot of people like to go there, and very soon you're going to have 300 apartments across the street, and they can all walk across, so you might not need extra parking. But, so this is really a tough decision for me to make, to take a neighborhood and say, we're sorry, you're not as important as the business owner. I mean, that's what we're doing here. So I'm interested in hearing what my fellow council members have to say, but I said it 2 times ago. These are, for me, if I had a chance to just say no, flat out no, I would. Okay, so I have to be convinced that I have no other option. And so I will be, you know, I also have a couple of other questions, and I'm guessing these will come with, if we approve this tonight, there will be a drainage plan, there will be a landscaping plan, a buffer plan, or is there a sidewalk in front of that fence, or does it go, I mean, I have a lot of questions that have not been addressed because, you know, what about, I mean, I'm told that the reason you have to have this is that people are parking in front of the neighbors' houses, and yet no one has complained about that in their letters. No one. They all say the same thing. They don't want a parking lot. So, and I appreciate the fact that staff said, we know this is tough, so we're leaving it to council. Thank you so much for that. So, you know, it's again, I mean, it's a great place to sit down and have a drink and have dinner and shoot some pool and all that great stuff, but at the end of the day, the people who live there are going to have to deal with that even when it's closed, you know, whatever. So, thank you. I think I got all my questions answered.
Mr. Sister?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure who the question goes to. I have several. Pam, if we have a situation in our land code, or land usage code, zoning codes, that give a set number of criteria, that so much as that criteria is met in the application, then unless there's something super overriding within those criteria, we really don't have a basis to deny the petition. Is that a correct statement? I mean, this goes along with some of the land use issues we had before.
If every single thing is met, then there still may be an option because it says that they may use this. It doesn't say they have an absolute right, but it says may. Also, what was in the staff report, it talks about the strategic connections. So it mentions that one of the goals, this is consistent with one of the goals, but it is not consistent with 2 of the other objectives. So there are things that support it, there are things that do not support it. So therefore, you have a decision to make.
Well, I guess, but the items that aren't supported doesn't seem to me to be a land use code. It's an objective goal of council. The housing and the housing restrictions, which to me doesn't fall within that criteria of the acceptable land usage. The other question I have is, you said that they were dropping a waiver. I couldn't hear you clearly on what you were talking about
Fence height.
specifically.
The fence height.
The fence?
The height of the fence.
Okay, so you're going to drop that waiver, so then theoretically, there's nothing for us to really work with tonight. I mean, and is that a true statement, you're dropping the fence waiver?
Yeah, we did that in conversations with staff on the 28th, and we did it again, followed up with them after we got our hearing date.
Okay.
Making sure that they were aware of that. And I'm here again tonight saying that we don't need any waivers for this. And because we've presented a site plan that is consistent, we are consistent with what your code says we need to do if we want to park.
Okay, thank you. So in other words, we have a request that meets essentially all of the land use criteria set out in our code, right? Okay, so that theoretically, you wouldn't even need to come to council with this, except for the fact that there's a potential for contentious issues with the neighbors and the ramifications it may have with those individual neighbors.
That's exactly right. And Section 12, 923 actually gives the city manager the right to administratively approve it. The city manager or his designee, and he is designated to all as his designee.
Well, that's fine, but so we don't, unless you were coming out onto, is it Beverly? Unless there was.
Rainbow.
Unless you were looking for an exit, ingress and egress onto to Rainbow, there would actually be no need for staff to do anything else but approve it, especially since you've taken away the waiver request on the fencing.
That's our
Okay?
position.
I know it's an unfortunate situation for the residents in the area, but again, we got ourselves into an issue a couple of years ago where we have criteria that we set out in our ordinances. If that's not good, then we need to go back and change the ordinance. And I don't know that we can do it by passing a resolution on this particular subject matter, irrespective of who the owner is, irrespective of what we're trying to accomplish. I empathize and I feel bad for them. I fully understand what the neighbors are thinking about and looking at, but I don't know that we can do anything about that at this point. We have ordinances. We need to go back and fix those ordinances. That's a whole different subject matter. That's not whether we approve a preliminary site plan. So that's my position at this point. Thank you.
Very good, Mr. Sister. Thank you. Mr. Chambers.
Thank you, Mayor. Question for staff. Is there going to be any change in tax revenue going from 2 single-family homes to a parking lot?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
Is there going to be any change in tax revenue going from 2 single-family homes to a parking lot?
We won't know that until the proposed development has occurred. That's set by the property appraiser, I believe. So we won't really know how much tax this will, how much tax the city will collect after the proposed parking has been developed.
Okay, so the answer is we don't know.
We won't know that until it gets reappraised.
Okay.
You will lose, obviously, residential ad valorem that's currently there, but we don't know what the offset's going to be on the commercial improvements until the appraisal department.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question.
Mr. Chambers.
Does the current parking for the business meet all the parking requirements, the number of spaces per square footage?
This is, I'm not sure if it meets all of the required spaces for the square footage of the restaurant. I'd have to take a look at code and verify that.
Okay, sorry to put you on the spot there.
I believe that it does. I was involved with the last conditional use that was done when they built the other parking lot. That was one of the things that we tried to maximize, was to make sure that we had adequate parking per the code. I can't recollect exactly, but we can certainly provide that with you when we bring a final site plan. If you want to go that direction, we could bring that information back to you when we do a final site plan. So,
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Terrell.
Yeah, certainly I'll speak. My question is the same as some of the comments that have been made. Originally, folks want to see redevelopment in Temple Terrace. And this criteria of utilizing, and they call it an accessory use. So you can't build a building on there. It can only be used for retention or parking. It has to be buffered. You have to have a wall in it. And additionally, there cannot be any ingress or egress into the residential neighborhood. Primarily, when this was put on the books many years ago, it was done primarily for the redevelopment area. Up and down that 56th Street corridor, where you have those strip malls that are, they don't have much depth to them. And to encourage redevelopment, that's when this was put on the books to help clean the city up and give an opportunity to incentivize more modern development. And there was talks that the road directly behind 56th Street would possibly be commercial office one day. Those are all in the minutes back in the history if anybody wants to go look at it. So that's where it came from. It's an accessory use. It's not going to change the zoning. And I'm looking at the area as a whole. A change like this will take 2 rental houses off of the Temple Terrace market. And these aren't high-end rental houses. Drive by and look at them. It will minimize egress onto these properties because those driveways will be eliminated. They won't be there anymore. I don't see what I've heard from the petitioner, and I didn't hear anybody rebutted from staff, said that he met the 9 criteria. If you have a code, a law in the book, and you don't like the law, take it out. But don't leave it in there and mislead people. That's not the right thing to do. We talked about the last time. We've approved 2 in the last year, very similar situation. And it was an accessory use to desirable businesses in our area. Folks in this community complain that they want quality businesses to come into our area, businesses that you'll frequent. And, I know Jimmy. Most people in town know Jimmy. And I'm not saying this because I know Jimmy. I spoke in favor of the other 2 projects as well because we need quality businesses. You want where you live to be convenient to where you live and has certain amenities where you live. I drive by this establishment every day and I never see trash out there. I go to Stefano's, sit there and look out the window. I never see trash out there. I don't drink, so I don't frequent the place. But I've been there for music. I've been there for lunch. So this business is maintained well. There will be a buffer. It will no longer be rental with more than 1 or 2 or 3 people living in there. So in essence, it will clean the neighborhood up to some degree. Nothing stops Mr. Chacha from tearing the houses down and leaving vacant lots. He can do that. Is that what you want? Because that can happen too. We really need to work within the realm of our codes. And, I called Mr. Stevenson today. I said, why didn't staff make a recommendation in favor or in opposition and leave it up to the city council? Because the code is the code. What's the code say? Does it meet the criteria of the code? The only thing that didn't meet the criteria from what I saw was the 10-foot high fence, and they were coming here for a variance, and Mr. Crane just said, hey, we're going to withdraw that. So the rest of the stuff is internal. He brought it to us as a courtesy because the last time there was some opposition, and obviously he wanted to make sure he was transparent and didn't want to do anything behind the scenes, and all of a sudden everybody say, hey, what'd you do here? So he did his job. He did his job. I think that if this council doesn't agree with a code that's on the books, change it. But when there is a business in a neighborhood and it works within its guidelines, if it makes too much noise, call code enforcement. We have code enforcement in place. Call the police. That's why we have these different services in our community. You know, you want to say you have drinking in neighborhoods. Well, you have the beer fest right in the middle of the city in a residential neighborhood. People are drinking, kids are driving by. It's a community event, but it's clean, it's well maintained. You know, people want to live a little bit too. To have a structured parking area that is dressed up, buffered, nicely maintained, versus having cars parked all over the street, to me, that's an asset. It's positive. Whether Jimmy owns it or anybody else owns it. And if Jimmy doesn't own it, they got to comply with the action that the council took. Somebody can't come in here tomorrow and go build a big building back there. It can't happen. They got to apply with what was approved here. As far as the details, Ms. Donahue, you asked, well, I haven't seen sidewalks, I haven't seen this and that. It's not time for that yet. This is a preliminary site plan. If we look here on Exhibit C, it says conditions of approval, and that's when we'll get into the meat of everything to say, you know, the buildings, or the parking lot's going to go here, this is what it's going to be made of, it's going to percolate. I remember when they expanded the parking lot some years back, and they did, instead of having these big holes or ponds or ditches, they went to the extra expense of putting a percolating parking lot where it has the gravel and it has all this structure underneath, because I've never seen anything like that, and I inquired, what is that? How are they doing that? So it was much more expensive than just digging a hole, letting water flow into it. They capitalized on that. I'm sure if there wasn't a need and a safety factor, this business owner wouldn't want to go buy 2 houses and tear them down and make them a parking lot. They're trying to keep cars off the streets. And don't we want that? We want people to come to Temple Terrace. We want there to be amenities in Temple Terrace that people want to frequent. So, you know, to sit here and say you can't do this, but our code says you really can, is not fair. It's not fair to the property owner. Everybody has property rights. And, you know, this is just not something that we should be standing in the way of. If the council strongly disagrees with this kind of activity, then the council should take action to change that code. But you're going to limit the development of all those little rundown buildings along 56th Street from Bush all the way to the river that have no depth and don't even meet the parking requirement as it is. They're grandfathered in. So just think about it, you know, as you want to change these, don't like the idea of the accessory use. It was put in for a reason to accommodate existing businesses, to allow them to expand and not move elsewhere, and incentivize businesses to want to come in Temple Terrace and prosper. So, you know, I'm in favor of it. I think it's an asset. There's pros and there's cons, and I agree with some of the comments that have been made on both sides. I get it. But if you don't agree with don't like this code as lawmakers, you need to change the code. But the code right now says that he can do it, or the business can do it. So I'm in favor of it, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Well, I do have a couple questions and a comment. I'll try to be brief. Since I've been on council, these types of issues have come up at least 3 or 4 times. The most recent one was the West Coast Brace and Limb on Fletcher Avenue and 53rd. But in each of the 3 or 4 that I can recall since I've been on council, there's a big, significant, huge difference. And that is that every one of them required a zoning change, or a change in the land use code, waivers, variances, They wanted to build buildings, right? West Coast Brace and Limb was the most recent one. They came before us because they wanted to demolish a house and build a building. We didn't want them doing that. And everybody acknowledged that they could bulldoze the house and put a parking lot there, and they wouldn't even have to come before us. There wouldn't be a thing we could do, right? We ultimately wound up approving them building the building because we legally really didn't have any good justification for denying that. My point in saying all that is, why is this matter even before us? They're not asking for a zoning change. There's no change in the land use code. They had one administrative variance that they were seeking, and they even withdrew that. So why is the sticky thing being put on this council? Why is this even here? And what happens if we should vote this down, right? And it's permitted clearly in our codes that this is allowable, but we decide we're going to vote it down. What position are we in legally then, violating our own ordinance? Why is the city council even being put in this position? And I don't even want to look at now we're going to do this all over again, because one of the conditions of approval is we have to approve the final site plan. So not only are we getting ensnared and somebody setting a trap for us once, they're setting a trap for us twice. What happens if we disapprove the final site plan? We're going to be seeing Mr. Crane again, right? Why is this before us? What am I missing?
Let me explain why this is before you, okay? This is not a setup for council, okay? There has been opposition from the neighborhood. There has been previous opposition on encroachment into residential properties. We've had that 2 instances before. They became very contentious. Mr. Crane or Mr. Chaccio is given the opportunity to, and we've acknowledged that his request meets the intent of the code, okay? Because of the contention with the situations in the past, it was my recommendation to these gentlemen that they get council approval on a preliminary site plan, which is one of the things that we can do in our code before they start spending a whole bunch of money, okay? What I didn't want to do was end up with this council having a problem with this site plan at the final stage, and at that point in time, they have spent a boatload of money, okay? Now, we're not trying to set the council up, but from what we heard in the past, there's been some heartache and some angst with encroaching into property. Does this project meet the intent of the code? Yes, it absolutely does, and I will tell you that flat out. But I don't want staff and administration now to be put between a rock and a hard place by now everybody saying, well, wait a minute, you guys didn't like the encroachment before, and all of a sudden now you're allowing it again without council input. That's why you've got it.
Yeah, but those, like I said, those involve required council action. We had to be involved. We had to change the zoning. We had to change the land use code. We had to do, there's certain things we had to be involved in those.
Well, I understand that, Mr. Mayor. This is just, again, this is a situation where I'm trying to make sure that everybody is happy and everybody's on the same page. I knew that I would get thrown into the woods here, right?
No, I'm not trying to do that.
This is an approved plan. The comment was made that the city manager approves site plans. That is not true. We have always brought site plans to council. What happens usually with a final site plan is that everybody is happy, there's no contention, there's no encroachment issues, there's no neighborhood that's complaining about problems. I do think this project will eliminate a lot of problems and put the onus back on the property owner. I do agree with that. But I don't want this applicant spending a whole bunch of money to go to a final site plan and then have an issue where this council votes him down, right? That is not fair to them. So that's the reason you're seeing a preliminary site plan, and you're seeing very little submittals, okay? We're allowed to do this by our code. Our code identifies a preliminary site plan process and a final site plan process to get to that point, okay? So this is out of the ordinary from what we're allowed to do with our code. And I understand there's no rezoning here. But, you know, the use of a parking lot on a piece of residential property with limited access to the commercial property with no rezoning is totally within the confines of our code, okay?
And that's what I'd like the public to understand. This is not, the council doesn't get to just make decisions because we feel this way or we feel that way, or we don't like that, or we like the brown fence and not the white one, or whatever. We have rules that we have to adhere to too. We have to obey our own codes, and we have to obey zoning and land use codes. That's why we approved the previous ones. We didn't have any choice. We can only deny these things for certain legal reasons, and there's nothing here. I don't see any reason. So, Mr. Schuster?
Yeah, I know during my previous comments, I had made raised the question as to why this was brought before us. But having heard Mr. Stevenson's explanation, I'll take that back. I do recognize there's some, we're the ultimate backstop, we're the ultimate responsible parties, if you will. And, it's something for us to be aware of, that there are contentious issues potentially with some of these things. But we can, by approving this tonight, which I'm in favor of, we reaffirm the position that we have set up for staff with the land code and the land usage codes. So I could just imagine some of the reverberations in the public by, administration just approved this without, you guys knowing anything about it. And, why he's within his rights to do so, I don't have a real problem. I understand, I don't have a problem with having to periodically reaffirm what they're doing and making sure that it's right. And if we find that it's wrong, then it becomes an incentive for us to go back and review the law and change it. I agree with what Mr. Trulura said. This is done for a purpose. And when you said that, it reminded me that that whole area behind all this place was originally supposed to be gone, if you go back to the original plans. So I know I said, why did we see this? But I think I understand that it's just, we're reaffirming that we understand and we appreciate the way the land code's written, and that every once in a while, it's good to kick the tires and make sure that it's in everybody's best interest. And in this, I think it is. I think it's a good business, and I agree with what it's going to do for the area once redevelopment kicks in and everything gets going. Thank you.
I just want to sum things up and say that I appreciate Mr. Stevenson. I did ask that question today. I said, why is this coming to us without a recommendation? And he felt it was a hot potato, so he was trying to be transparent, okay? And I don't fault him for that.
Not at all.
He wanted to bring it to us. So with that being said, and this proposal meeting the intent of the code, I would move that staff move forward with their normal duties to move this project forward as the code permits.
Second.
And it'll come back to us as a final site plan. It's a preliminary site plan, and they certainly have to work within the confines of the code that we have here. But it does meet the intent of the code, and therefore Mr. Stevens has given us the opportunity to air it out, take comment, and gives him a comfort level that, we all know what's going on.
For a motion, did you intend to second that?
Yes.
Comments on the motion, Mr. Chambers?
Yeah, so that motion, what about the resolution that's in front of us? I mean, we were really in the question phase before we got to the motion on this resolution.
Or did you intend your motion to approve the resolution? Because really
Yeah,
specific, it sounded like you've given staff direction rather than.
Well, I'm moving to approve the resolution, but the code also says that staff can approve this type of proposal internally and bring us the, final site plan approval. So I don't want to start switching gears and saying, we have to approve these projects. The reason it's coming here is because it's a hot potato. So I'm just trying to say, hey, we've heard, I'm good. I made a motion what I hear. There was a second, so staff can move forward within their realm of authority and continue on the path that they were continuing before all this opposition came up. But we're following the code.
But the motion is to approve the
Yes, to
resolution.
approve the resolution.
Is that what you intended to second?
Yes, but the proviso that the waiver is removed from it.
Correct.
That's the only clarification.
Yes, with the removal of,
Okay.
the
very good.
withdrawal of the 10-foot wall.
Right.
Okay, very good. Mr. Chambers, does that satisfy your question?
Yes, I just wanted to know, his motion, when he first made it, wasn't on this
Understood.
one.
Yep, thank you for that
Comments on
clarification.
the question, Mrs. Donahue?
So just to clarify, this is not preventing the final site plan from to come here. This is just first preliminary.
That's correct, because the resolution
Okay.
doesn't include that.
To approve.
so-
What's normal process?
This gives the applicant permission, if you would, to move into final site plan with all the final designs, site lighting, drainage, the sidewalk, the design of the wall, location, landscaping, the whole 9 yards.
That's coming back.
Yes,
Yes, final site plan will come.
Okay.
to final site plan.
All final site plans
I
come back?
have a comment I need to make. Tonight, we have heard,
Well, let's
I'm-
stick, let's make the vote, and then
Then I
how
would-
about
I
I
would
give you a
like to
chance
make
then?
comment.
How's that? Because we need to
That's
stick
fine.
with it. Okay.
Go ahead.
So we'll take the vote,
Do
and
you
then you
have-
have a
I have
question?
a question. Do all final site plans come back to us? Yes. Okay.
Okay. And I'll give you an
You good?
opportunity to,
you think, Mrs. Schoen?
You made the motion, you got a second, you can do discussion after the second, before the vote.
okay. Very well. If it's a discussion on the motion, go ahead.
Well, it's as much on what has been said
Okay.
as the motion. We have really thrown this little neighborhood some really bad comments tonight. And if you live in the neighborhood, you love the neighborhood, okay? And there are a lot of workforce homes in that neighborhood that are doing their best to be part of Temple Terrace, okay? When I campaigned, I had people say to me, oh my gosh, nobody ever comes here. We're like the forgotten neighborhood, okay? And so as you drive through, it really isn't an eyesore, and it isn't, the businesses are not all run down. I mean, we have got to stop using our argument for one or the other by disparaging one, okay? These are Temple Terrace residents, and we're going to pass this tonight, okay? That's the fact. But that, I hope, is not going to indicate to these homeowners that we also are going to start looking at that whole street and to wipe them out, okay? Because why would anybody invest in a home in that neighborhood if they thought in 5 years, 10 years, we're going to do that? So I just want to encourage all of us to remember that they had an opinion. It wasn't the one that fit with what's going to happen, but we sure don't need to make it sound like, there's nothing good going on in that neighborhood. I'm sorry, I just couldn't let that go by, because there's some, I mean, the homeowner who won our contest this year for 4th of July, her and the neighbor next to her really, and she's here tonight, okay? And they really went to a lot of trouble, and in driving around, there's some really nice little houses in there, okay? And that's one of the original neighborhoods of Temple Terrace. So let's keep everybody uplifted when we're talking about a situation like that. So I'm ready for the vote.
I'm going to respond to that because I thought that was directed towards me. Nobody spoke, I didn't speak derogatory to the neighborhood. I said there was 2 rental houses there that are not well-maintained. There are very nice neighborhoods in there. And matter of fact, some of the comments were derogatory, saying there's always trash on this property. False. Drive by every day, you see Jimmy and others picking up trash. Grass is always mowed, unlike a lot of houses in our whole city where the grass isn't mowed. So I don't think anybody has talked the neighborhood down. I think we looked at it and said, let's work within the realm of the code. And that's what we've done. Nobody said, let's twist the code. Let's not do what the code says. We said, let's work within the code. If you don't like the code, then change it. But let's work within the code. And the folks have the right to express their opinion as they have done. And it's certainly appreciated. but we're following the intent of the code, and the criteria has been met. It's not an opinion. It's based on facts. The criteria have been met, and the code has been satisfied. Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments? We have a motion to pass the resolution that's been seconded. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. Okay, preliminary site plan is approved. Next item on the agenda is a resolution approving the modification of an interlocal agreement with Hillsborough County titled Traffic Control Signal Maintenance. Good night, folks. And City Manager Stevenson will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can just kind of brief you here, at our last meeting, we had a resolution, a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with Hillsborough County for traffic signal maintenance and a modification to that interlocal agreement so that the county would start reimbursing us for some landscaping maintenance along Temple Terrace Highway. After Tuesday's meeting, when I got in the office on Wednesday, I had a note from the county attorney that they wanted to add 2 words to this. And I gave them this, believe me, I gave them this 2 weeks in advance before it came to us. And they sent me an email and said, we need to add 2 words. So what they're proposing is to add the words reckless and omissions to the section 11 of the interlocal agreement. And it basically is in line with exempting the city except for a claim as a direct result of negligent, reckless, or intentional acts or omissions of the city or its employees in the performance of maintenance, maintaining the landscaping. So that is a very minor change. Mr. Schoen and I talked about it. We don't know that we have a problem with them adding those 2 words. So the resolution is, again, before you to revise that section of the MOU so that I can get it back to them. So.
Very good. Thank
Okay.
you, sir. Is there any members of the public that would like to comment on this matter? Seeing none, it's my understanding there's nobody's on the phone and we've gotten no correspondence. So council members, are there questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to
Don't be
approve.
reckless.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Motion passes. Next item is a resolution approving the purchase and installation of hydraulic mechanisms to semi-automate the sanitation fleet. Public Works Operations and Maintenance Director Ray LeBlanc will explain. Welcome, Mr. LeBlanc.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I have a resolution recommending approval that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the purchase and installation of car tippers to be retrofitted on the existing sanitation fleet for the purpose of semi-automating the residential solid waste collection. The current Public Works residential sanitation fleet consists of 6 vehicles. All of these 6 vehicles will need to have car tippers installed to service tipper carts for the semi-automated residential solid waste collection program. This is the first step needed in the implementation process for the semi-automated residential solid waste program. All 6 of these vehicles were purchased from Container Systems and Equipment located in Daytona Beach, Florida. The car tippers manufactured by Perkins Manufacturing and Container Systems Equipment Company Incorporated is the Florida dealer for this type of equipment and installation. The total cost for all 6 vehicles, parts, labor, hydraulic valves, hoses, and loading hopper modifications is $68,322. Due to required compatibility requirements for hydraulic system functions, loading hopper, structural modifications, I'm making a request to approve the reference retrofit of the 6 residential solid waste vehicles as a sole source procurement. The funds for the retrofit of these vehicles are available in the Machinery and Equipment Fund, 480-2041-534-6499. Questions?
Very good. Is there anybody in the gallery who'd like to comment on this item? Understand we have nobody on the phone and there's been no correspondence. Council members, do you have questions of Mr. LeBlanc? Seeing none, if acceptable, I'll entertain a motion approving the purchase and installation of hydraulic mechanisms to semi-automate the sanitation fleet.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No nays? Resolution is approved. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you.
Next item is a resolution accepting a CESF grant funds to purchase a mobile command trailer. Deputy Chief of Police Bernie Seeley will explain. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, Mr. Stevenson, the city of Temple Terrace has been awarded a non-matching reimbursement grant in the amount of $114,783 through the 2020 Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Grant. With your approval, the police department intends to use the funds for this grant to purchase a new 38-foot gooseneck mobile command trailer equipped to support off-site remote police department administrative and investigative contact with our citizenry throughout the current crisis and beyond. If approved, the purchase of this trailer in the amount of $102,700 to Dana Safety will be made in accordance with the City of Temple Terrace purchasing guidelines. The remaining funds not to exceed $12,083 will be used to purchase additional equipment needed to properly outfit the command trailer. As you know, the city has experienced a significant impact to our day-to-day operations due to the current state of emergency. All city facilities, to include City Hall, were locked down on March 18th, 2020. While attempting to continue police operations, though modified to respond to the needs of our community during this crisis, these mandated actions have dramatically impacted police and city operations and curtailed public access to the city facilities. The command trailer will provide a safe, adequate, stable, and efficient mobile command element outside of utilizing existing city facilities to support police operations. Your staff recommends the city approve the resolution and the expenditure of the $114,782 of the CESF grant funds for the purchase of this mobile command trailer and the additional equipment needed to properly outfit it. And I stand for questions.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, it's my understanding that we've gotten no correspondence and nobody is on the phones. Council member questions? Mrs. Donahue.
Is this a set up like a manufactured home? Is it, or is it movable?
It's a movable van. We would, it's a fifth wheel, so we have the vehicle actually with the fifth wheel that would actually tow it.
Okay, so your intention would be to move it around or to try and keep it stationary, or?
We would be able to move it wherever we needed it within the city. If, let's say, for example, if a situation were to occur and they needed to set up a area where they're dispensing medications or whatever and needed additional police support in the redevelopment area or wherever it is, the Harney ball fields, we would be able to move the trailer down there to support police operations, where now we currently do not have a platform that would allow us to do that. This would include mobile communications, command elements for the command staff, basically a home camp that we could work out of outside of using an existing city facility.
And this would be staffed by specific officers or
It
whoever
would be,
happened to be on duty?
It would be whatever at that time that we needed, whatever element we needed, what resources we needed to be deployed at that time.
Sounds like a win.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Other questions for Chief Seeley? Very good. If there are no further questions, I'd ask for a motion accepting the CESF grant funds to purchase a mobile command trailer.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, a nay sign? No nays, the motion passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next item is a resolution awarding the University Square Water Line Improvement Project to Carl Hankins Incorporated. Public Works Director of Utilities, Troy Tinch, will explain. Take your time, sir.
Mr. City Manager. Welcome back, everybody. This is still Thursday.
Welcome back.
Yes, Troy Tench, Public Works Utilities Director. I'm here this evening to seek approval for funding of the water line improvements at the University Square Townhome Community. As you know, this is a community development block grant project, meaning these funds were specifically earmarked for projects in Provis and low income. We'll go with that. It's been a long night. In low income neighborhoods, it's meant to enhance these neighborhoods. So we've earmarked this, or specifically identified this project as a water line improvement project. It will allow for the city to better maintain the facility. Currently, the water lines have a direct connection to the water main, all the service lines for the individual townhomes. So what that means is anytime that there's a break in the service line, we have to shut down the entire row of houses. So it could be up to 40 to 50 homes shut down for one house service line fixed. So what we're proposing to do is go in and put in a new corp stops at the main and then run new poly line to the meter, so that in the event we have an issue in the future with a service line break, which is very commonplace, we can shut down that one service line and fix that. In addition, we plan on dropping in some new Insta valves in the main itself, the 6-inch main, and that will help us with the construction of the process, so we're not shutting down again entire sections of this neighborhood to work on 4 or 5 or even 10 homes at a time. We'll kind of shorten that process and limit the amount of issues created with us going in and closing people's water off for an extended period of time. So that said, staff recommends the City Council approve a resolution authorizing Carl Hankins, Inc. to construct a water line improvement project within the University Square Townhome Community in the amount not to exceed $488,015.00 to be paid for from account number 410-1922-533.63-32. I will stand for questions, if any.
We're good. Are there members of the public who'd like to comment on this item? It's my understanding that nobody's on the phone and we have no correspondence. Council members, are there questions? Yes, Ms. Dunham.
If you were to build this property now,
Yes,
you would build it with this type of plumbing?
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's correct. This project was built a number of years ago.
Yeah.
It's a small townhome community. We would absolutely require the corporation stops at the main as well as then another stop at the meter.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Other questions? Seeing none, if acceptable, I'd call for a motion awarding the University Square Water Line Improvement Project to Carl Hankins, Inc.
I move to approve the project.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed with a nay sign? No nays. Motion passes. Thank
Thank you.
you. Next item is a public hearing on tentative fiscal year 2020-2021 tax levy and budget. First reading of ordinance 1497 adopting the fiscal year 2021 tax levy. I'm not sure who's Assistant Finance Director Jim Ingraham will present.
Good evening, Mayor Ross.
Good evening, sir.
City Council. In accordance with the applicable provisions of the city charter and the Florida statutes, the City Council has scheduled the first of 2 public hearings on the property tax millage levy. The first hearing is tonight, September 3rd, 2020, to solicit public comments on the proposed property tax millage levy prior to the adoption of the annual budget for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. The agenda has been structured to provide the council with the opportunity to comply with both city charter and Florida statutory requirements on the budget and tax levy. The council is required to convene a public hearing on the proposed property tax millage levy and make announcements at the public hearing prior to formal consideration of Ordinance 1497. The recommended property tax millage rate is 6.555 per $1,000 of assessed value, the same as the current fiscal year. The recommended property tax millage rate of 6.555 is 0.5745 mils, or 9.61% higher than the rolled back rate of 5.9805. The council should take action to approve the ordinance 1497 to establish the ad valorem tax rate for the upcoming fiscal year. If approved on first reading tonight, the ordinance will be scheduled for second and final reading on September 15th, 2020, and that is a Tuesday. I stand here, and Ms. Boswell's here for any questions that you might have regarding the tax rate millage.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ingraham. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, there are no callers on the phone, and we've had no correspondence. So council member questions? Are there questions on the millage rate? Okay, very good. Thank you. If this is acceptable, I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance 1497 on first reading. Oh, I'm sorry. I need the city clerk to read the title of ordinance 1497. Thank you for looking out for me.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, adopting a millage rate of 6.555 mils for fiscal year 2020 through 2021, said millage rate being 0.5745 mils, or 9.61% more than the rollback rate of 5.9805 mils, providing a severability clause and providing an effective date.
Good, thank you. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance 1497 on the first reading.
Move to approve on first reading ordinance 1497, adopting the fiscal 2020-2021 tax levy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there comments on the motion? Council discussion on the motion? If none, I'll call vote on the motion. All those in favor signify with aye. Oh.
This needs to be done individually according to statute, so each person needs to state their vote separately.
We need a roll call vote.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have no discussion on the motion. Mrs. Donahue?
I vote yes.
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 Aye.
Yes.
Unanimous. The millage rate is accepted on the first reading. If approved, the ordinance will appear for a second reading and public hearing on September the 15th, 2020. Now we'll move, the hearing is still open, we're going to move directly into the budget. So this is a public hearing on tentative fiscal year 2021 tax levy and budget, first reading of ordinance 1498, adopting the fiscal year 2021 annual budget. Finance Director Lynn Boswell, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I am very pleased to present to you the first of two public hearings to solicit public comment on the annual budget for the upcoming 2020-2021 fiscal year. Notification of the public hearing was initially provided to all property owners in the truth in millage notices provided by the Property Appraiser's Office in mid-August. The recommended budget was presented to the City Council in a series of budget workshops to review and solicit adjustments to the allocations of the budget documents. The total city fiscal year 2021 budget amounts to $66,575,315. A budget summary document has been attached to your agenda illustrating the total budget for the upcoming fiscal year. I must read the remainder of this portion even though you have it for public record. The proposed fiscal year 21 budget reflects the following. No increase in the ad valorem tax rate of 6.555 mils from the current year of 6.555 mils. A 3.4% increase in commercial sanitation rates. A 3.4% increase in single-family residential sanitation rates. Capital items, starting with General Fund, $979,786. In the Community Investment Tax Fund, $912,321 to include public safety vehicles and equipment, building improvements for fire stations 1 and 2, pool deck resurfacing at the family complex, and the replacement of the Ridgedale Complex restroom. $1,771,500,000 in utility system improvements and vehicle replacements, $297,000 to purchase residential carts and containers, and for the streets, $1,205,000 in street, sidewalk, bicycle trail, and drainage improvements. In accordance with the applicable provisions of the city charter and the Florida statutes, the City Council has scheduled tonight as the first of 2 public hearings on fiscal year 21 annual budget. After the City Council solicits public comment on the proposed annual budget, the council should take action to approve the attached ordinance adopting the proposed budget. The second hearing and final reading of the ordinance will be held on September 15th, 2020, 6 p.m. here.
Good, that was a mouthful, thank you. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? We have no phone-in callers, and we have no correspondence. Council members, do you have questions regarding the budget? Mr. Schiffler?
The increase, excuse me, the increase to the commercial sanitation rates, does that not require a separate ordinance? Would that require 2 readings, or is it by resolution?
Those are by resolution,
Okay,
and that's
all right,
going to be
okay,
coming up
okay.
in September 15th.
I would offer just one comment for the next public hearing. I've been listening to the budget presentation for several years now, and I understand the definition, but there's a lot of people in the listening public who may not understand what the rollback terminology means. Okay, so just maybe that could be a part of next presentation, maybe a short definition of what that means, so that the citizenry will understand it also.
We will definitely make comment on that on September
That's the only question
15th.
I have.
Other questions? Mrs. Donahue?
I'd like to know, we had a room full of people here. Why is this the last item on the agenda? I mean, we had all those people here. Why didn't we make it the first item so that they would still be here? I mean, I realize it's kind of, you're like, hey, come back. We're getting ready to talk about the budget. But, is there a reason why this is last? It's like the most important thing we've done all night. I mean, I know not to Mr. Chacho, but to the rest of us.
Mrs. Chachio, I knew would be something of contention. That's why I put that there. You notice a bunch of people left after that was over. The reason for putting these last is that they just ended up being last. There's no reason for it.
Okay, I'd like to
There's no
have
particular reason
them
for it.
moved up a
Well,
little next time.
I think they also gauge how many calls we get, and are we getting complaints, are we getting?
Yeah, I
I don't
know.
think anybody's said
No, they're
anything
not.
about the budget.
They're
It's fairly
They're happy.
ironic and
Yeah.
funny that we
Yeah.
had more people calling us this week about trash than we did the budget.
Yeah,
just like
no,
to-
to be
I'd just like to
fair.
know they're hearing it.
Yeah, well, to be fair to Mr. Stevenson, we have these discussions at times, and we
Yeah.
try to put what is, we know the people
Yeah,
are coming
yeah.
out for, we want to put that up front so
Yeah.
that they can leave.
I get it.
Yeah, so I mean,
I
it's,
mean, the budget certainly is the most important thing that we do
yeah, but if there's,
in the course of a year,
but if there's blame in this, it's as much mine as it is his, I guess is what I'm
Well,
saying.
I just want to say, Jim got up and said, we're doing this in front of the public, and no offense to the couple of you who are still here, but we had a whole bunch of public.
Oh, they're all on YouTube with the popcorn.
Yeah.
Mr. Chalor,
I
you
got
have,
an answer to your request, Ms. Donahue.
Yeah.
If you want people to stay here till midnight, raise the rate like 1 or 2 mils, and I guarantee you'll be out the door.
All right,
They'll
now
stay
I
till
have
We need a
midnight.
sleeping bag.
They'll all be here.
sounds like the voice of experience here.
They'll be here.
You've been here.
You may not want them here, but they'll be here.
All right. Are there other questions of Ms. Boswell regarding the budget? If not, I'll ask the clerk to read the title of ordinance 1498, please.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, adopting the final operating budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2020 and ending September 30th, 2021, and the capital improvement budget, given notice to of the public hearings thereon, authorizing the city manager to issue such instructions as are necessary to achieve and accomplish the service programs, authorizing the city manager or the finance director to transfer monies among the departments and programs within any fund, authorizing the city manager or the finance director upon receipt of a donation or grant to appropriate said funds in the expenditure line of the program as requested by the donor grantor, providing a severability clause, effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Very good. If acceptable, I call for a motion to approve ordinance 1498 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Mr. Stone, does this require a roll call vote as well?
Yes.
Very good. See how quick I learned? Very good. No discussion on the motion. Mrs. Donahue, we'll start with you.
I say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Good, unanimous. The ordinance 1498 passed unanimously and will be appear for a second reading and public hearing on September 15th, 2020. So the public hearing on ad valorem and the budget is now closed. Council business. Do we have carryover council business that we need to address? I have one quick item. Let me explain a little bit for the public who's watching so they know what we're talking about. It's time for the council to do evaluations on the 3 charter officers, the city manager, city clerk, and city attorney. There was some concern that the way we've done this the past couple of years, we want to make sure we're very consistent with the sunshine laws. And so I put a hold on this until I was able to get with our attorneys and make sure that everything that we were doing was legal and transparent and fair. And I sent out, the paperwork's not changing. The only thing that's changing is how that paperwork is put into a packet and where it eventually goes and that kind of stuff. So I sent you guys a kind of a flow. Is that okay with you? Is that going to work okay with you guys?
Yes.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so I will now send I'll look at the calendar and get some dates set up to do this, and we'll move forward on that. So, okay. Also, a part of that discussion is at some point after these are done, I'd like to bring this up again, because I'd like to talk about maybe redoing the forms and the matrix a little bit. But we don't have time to do that now, so
Thank you.
Okay, very good. New business, board reports. Mr. Chambers, that's all first.
New business. I know the city has always had bike with the mayor, and with COVID, we haven't had the one day to bike with the mayor. But the program's set up to ride during any time this month if you're on your normal ride or ride special and go by the Family Recreation Complex. You sign in and they've got the Bike with the Mayor t-shirt or a set of lights for your bicycle. You have your choice. So I encourage everybody to go out and ride. I was going to bring my shirt to show it off. I went by today and on my ride and got a shirt, and I wanted you, Mayor, to sign it for me, but I forgot my shirt. So I'm sorry. I'll bring it back another time so you can sign it.
Well, thank
But
you.
it's a great program, and the people at the rec center have everything for you if you want to go by.
Very good. And for staff and for members of the public, if you want to bike with the mayor, you just send me an email. I have new tires on my bike, and I'm happy to ride with you. So. Any other new business?
I have a question.
Mrs. Donahue.
I recently,
Oh, I'm sorry.
who's the liaison for, is it called the Variance Board? I sit on the MCEB, okay. What's the other one?
I was the liaison, but I don't know in the new order if I am. If I still am the liaison to that, I didn't get notice of a meeting.
If you were, you still are.
Okay.
Okay, so my question is, I was hearing about some business that had gone before them, and it was pretty important stuff, okay? And why is it could be this part of resolution or whatever, and I want to look at it if it is. If you go before the code board, they make a decision, but it comes back to us. So why is it that that board can make a decision and that's it? It doesn't go anywhere else. And there's some pretty heavy stuff.
I served on that so many years ago, and that's not exactly true. I mean, there was, you came before the Board of Adjustment, right?
Yes.
You came before the Board of Adjustment with an issue, and if the issue wasn't resolved, you still had the option to take it to council. But that would require
I'm talking
ordinance.
about the reverse. If they say yes, you can put up a 40-foot high, we'll give you a variance to do this. That's it. They don't have to come back to us. That's my question is, what, I have not served on that board, so I've just,
Again, I've been liaison for 2 years, and we've met once. You know, they only meet as needed, and I don't know if what you're talking about has been recent, because I haven't attended anything recent.
Very
I don't know
recent.
if there's been one.
like 2
But
weeks ago.
regardless, I would think that if someone didn't like the decision of the variance board, like they granted a 20-foot high fence, that it could come from for us, but I don't know.
Well,
Mr. Chiller, I think you
Yeah.
had some chance
Yeah.
to input.
Any of those can be appealed to the council, but I will tell you from having the history that whatever the boards vote on, that's the way it is. And that's the way it used to be with code enforcement as well. And some lawmaker had a new idea and they passed some kind of statute, ordinance, whatever. And this was back in the Mark Conley days or even
Yeah.
Ted Taub days, that anything the code board recommends or approves has to come to city council for a final blessing. So that was some law that was put in place. It didn't cover the Board of Adjustment, but it did apply to the code enforcement board. Because before it was whatever the board said, that was
Yeah.
it. But then something changed in the law, and they said we had to bless the code enforcement ruling, whatever it may be, for it to stick. I don't know if there was a fine imposed. I don't remember, but it has something to do with the law changing somewhere. Maybe Mr. Schoen can,
but it
look at
doesn't
that, but
cover-
I don't know.
It doesn't cover that board, that particular,
It applied to any ruling of the code enforcement board has to be approved by city
Right.
council, but the Board of Adjustment is the way it's always been. The code board used to be that way too, but some law changed, and it was said that the city council had to give the final blessing for it to stick.
well, can we give teeth to that board and say, what would we have to do to say? Because we don't have any idea what, unless the liaison brings it back to us.
Well, I think we've got some AM, FM talking going on at the same time here. When the Board of Adjustment approves a variance, I believe that is final and does not have to come to us.
Right.
If the petitioner goes before them and they're denied the variance, they can always appeal it to
Right.
us. So I think we got a little
I
confusion
understand
here.
that.
Now, I think to your point is, maybe, and this may be a discussion we want to have, I think what you're saying is true, that somebody who goes before that board and gets a variance, that maybe it's a significant variance, maybe it's not just to put a fence down, there's no opportunity for us to even know about it, much less endorse it. I think that's what you're,
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay,
So
so-
how do we,
or do we want to? And in order to know that, we would want to set some thresholds or have a discussion about, well, if it's, you want to paint your garbage can, whatever, brown instead of blue, but that's one thing. But if you want to get a variance that's beyond a certain threshold, maybe we want to have some notification or something. But
and that's why I started by saying, who is the liaison, so that somebody could educate
Well,
me.
why don't we start, before we jump into action to change stuff, why don't we start by getting a clarification of the way things are,
Okay.
right? So I don't know,
Community development.
can somebody kind of give us a 5-minute snapshot of how this thing works?
Mr. Mayor, you explained it. I don't know what else to say. The format of the variance board is just that. The board approves variances. We don't have that many meetings because, quite honestly, I encourage staff to find a resolution instead of getting and convening somebody to get a
Yeah.
difference of a 2-foot setback to put a shed.
Yeah.
I don't know that you guys want to deal with stuff like that.
I don't know.
Somebody may want to come and put a screen porch on the back of their house and may need 2 additional feet.
Well, why don't we do this? How's this sound to you? Why don't you kind of do a little probing and see, maybe this was bigger than what we're, and you have some specific examples, and then maybe then you could come before, you can't talk to Mr. Chambers, unfortunately, but maybe you could then say, hey, we need to set a threshold on something that should come before the council. We don't need to talk about.
But let me,
Yeah, I don't want to talk about she sheds
Let's kick it to the liaison and ask him to look into it.
But
whenever you
he
meet
doesn't know
next.
what she's talking about, though.
Well, we
We've
go to
had at
community
least
development
3
and find out.
meetings, and I didn't know that we had a liaison. So apparently our liaison, Mr. Chambers, is not getting notice that we are actually having meetings of the Board of Adjustment. So,
Okay.
So it's James's fault, basically.
Don't take it personally. Don't
So
take it
I
personally.
tell you, we have new business every meeting. So if this is something that needs to be brought up for discussion, or we need to revise or amend, or somebody, just bring it up and we'll go from there.
But let me make sure I understand. Not every decision that the code board makes.
No, it's just a lien reduction.
It's lien reductions, and that's it. I mean, if they impose a fine on somebody, a daily fine, until they correct
We
a
don't-
code violation, you guys don't hear about these.
Supposed to read
Right.
emails?
Okay.
One of the things that we can do is, obviously, we could start copying the liaison with the
Well,
with the
they
report.
haven't met, and at the last meeting that I attended, there wasn't even a quorum. So, sometimes, but I haven't gotten a notice.
I just, again, we don't do a lot of business with Board of Adjustment because I encourage, there's got to be a solution. Rather than having an applicant spend $350 to come in and say, yeah, you can have 2 feet. Most of the time you can talk that out with an applicant so that you don't waste their time, their money, and they can still get what they want. So, I mean, if it's something that we have to document,
I'll check in on
we
it.
do document.
Okay, Mr. Chambers, thank you. Mr.
And
Fleur.
the code board, the board is just not a free-for-all. I mean, they gotta meet four criterias. And then the purpose of putting the liaisons, because that was done back in the day as well, is to have that link, so those guys
It's
can
a
come back
problem,
and
come
say,
back.
hey, this board approved something crazy, I think I want to bring it to your attention.
Okay,
what the
that's right,
liaison-
what I'm looking
So we don't
for.
want to take all this authority away from these boards. 'cause
No.
No, no, no.
Why bother?
No, I'm just
That's
asking the
So
question.
just blame James.
Well,
That's the liaison.
I'm
And-
not trying to blame James.
I'll
Well-
try to read the emails.
Okay.
Okay, on another note, I
Yes.
have accepted the position on the Municipal Issues Florida League of Cities Advisory Board. So I will be your representative for that, and so anything I get from that, I'll send. Now, last year, we had others. Gil, did you go back to transportation?
Yeah, but I haven't had time to do it this year.
Okay, all right, so I will just share that. But I do have a question about the ethics training. What have we been doing or offering to all of our advisory boards? Because they all have to do this training, and I don't know what we've offered them. I just passed along, I was getting ready to pass along today the FLC training that's available in October, and Mr. Schoen passed it on before me, so I was like, well, okay, that saved me an email. They all have to attend ethics training. They've been appointed by us. They are required to take that training, and I just don't know what we're doing to make it easy for them.
I
A
think
couple years ago, we had, our attorney had a day, and everybody came.
we can either do that again in the past. In the past, though, once the statute came into effect that they had to have this training, we've been basically giving them the links that I would give you all to let them know it's available to them at this location or that location, so that they can do it at their convenience as well. But either I've sent it to them, or perhaps Cheryl, yeah, she's nodding, Cheryl has sent it to them so that they can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Good, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Any other new business or board reports?
Yeah.
Mr. Sister,
I'd like to-
I skipped you, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
It's okay, that's all right.
You were next,
I'm
and
invisible. Yeah, I'm stealth. I just wanted to bring the council and the citizens up to speed with what's going on with HART. There is a proposal to make some modifications to the current scheduling, routes, and so forth. within the entire complex or the entire operation. There's only two issues that will affect Temple Terrace residents. One of them will be the the 6 bus will be going from 15-minute intervals to 20-minute intervals. That's a basic who cares. The other one is the 48 bus will no longer go down Fletcher and then down 50th and out Fowler. It'll run through the bowels of USF and then out Fowler. So there's really essentially no service changes to the city of Temple Terrace for our residents. But if anybody wants to offer any commentary on it, it certainly is available at the goheart.com or goheart.com website. The second issue is, at a previous meeting, I had been appointed to the board for the economic recovery through the Board of County Commissioners. And I was finally able to get a hold of the guy today, and I still haven't been approved by the county commission yet. That won't happen until I think they're meeting on the 16th because the board meeting actually meets on the 17th. So
That's career board.
the career board,
Career
correct,
source or
correct.
whatever, yeah.
Career source, I'm sorry. So I have nothing to report on that because I haven't been to anything yet. And if we don't get it done by the 17th, we have to wait till November for the subsequent meeting on that. But I'll let everybody know, I'll let the council know what comes of all that. That's it. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Other new business or board reports? Okay, city manager report, Mr. Stevens.
I've got about a dozen. Got about a dozen, no, just kidding.
You gotta go.
It's late. Mr. Mayor, I have nothing to share with you other than, it's been a long meeting, but we've got a lot of business done today, so.
Has been a long meeting, but we've got a lot of important stuff done. City attorney's report?
Nothing.
I got two questions.
Yes, sir, go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Mr. Schistler.
Mr. Stevenson, I haven't seen any demo yet going on at Burger King. I thought he was going to do that.
He was scheduled to meet with his construction crew out there this week.
Yeah, I know.
That, I hadn't heard. I did follow up Monday with an email to him and say, are you still on schedule? And he said, yes, we're meeting out there this week to get things going. So
That's going to be a big deal.
I will follow up with another email.
Okay.
Because when he told me he was scheduling it to be done, that was my response. Wow.
Could you, if you get something from him, could you shoot us an email so we all know?
Yeah. Because people ask
If you get
all the
something
time,
from him, yeah.
what's happening, and you say, well, it's supposed to be done.
We have a bottle of champagne waiting for
I'm
when he
I'm
happens.
sure you do. I'm
happens
sure you
to
do.
that.
I have a question from Mr. Schoen. A couple several weeks ago, you issued I think it was from you, regarding the changes from the emergency planning group through the county, and that you were going to work on an ordinance for us?
Correct.
How's that coming?
Well, I spoke with our fire chief, and he was in the process of working with the county on updating their plan. According to the statute, the county must have a plan, and cities are recommended to have a plan, but ours must be coordinated with the county. So the plan is to present you with an ordinance so that you can fill in the gaps, so to speak, that are in our charter and our ordinances, our code right now, with regard to declaring a state of emergency. We want to incorporate this emergency plan, but they're still working on it. So that's why I didn't want to go ahead without having the final emergency plan made a part of that.
So it's still in process?
They're still working on
Okay,
that.
good. Thank you. I'll shut up.
One final comment, I know it's been a long night, but I want to compliment Mr. Stevenson and Finance Director Lynn Boswell and Deputy Director there, Jim Ingraham there. This has been a very, very well done, very orderly, organized budget season. I think you, from the very first version of this, you've given us a very sound document, easy to understand, realistic numbers, good projections. Your asks for increases were realistic and justified. you've had good answers to all of our questions. I just want to thank, I know other people work on this, but particularly the three of you, I know all your directors had a hand in this, but the three of you really did a great job this year with the budget. So thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you acknowledging that. Finance Department has done very well.
Yes, they have.
I'm real proud of them, so.
Yes, they have.
And all the directors. I mean, everybody. It started out with the directors bringing stuff to me that didn't have a whole bunch of fluff in it to begin with. So that made it real easy to get through the process. We didn't have to go looking for money or start cutting money. So that's where it starts. And we've got a bunch of good staff. I
Yes,
can
you
tell
do.
you that. So appreciate you
Very
saying
good.
that.
Any other business to come before the council tonight? If not, we are adjourned.
Thank you.